But let's link to that video from Godwin.
She's coming.
This note, it is my honor and privilege to invite the minister and his colleagues to join me to unveil the logo and officially launch the National Apprenticeship Program. I thank you. May God bless our nation, Ghana. E-levy bill. I'll proceed to sign it. Okay, I've just given assent to the repeal of the famous e-levy bill. Ladies and gentlemen, on this note, it is my honor and privilege to officially launch the National Sanitary Pad Distribution Program, a promise made and a promise kept. Committed to ensuring that all who are concerned about education in Ghana have an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to shaping the policies and programs that will deliver the kind of education we all want. I'm gratified that this has become a reality, and I stand before you today to officially open the National Education Consultative Forum with great pleasure.
Welcome, and this is the beginning of the live coverage of the 120-day social contract that President John Dramani Mahama has with the Ghanaian people after being elected President of the Republic of Ghana, sworn in on January 7, 2025. 120 days on, exactly today, May 7, we are looking back, assessing what he said he would do, what has been done, and what is yet to be done. That's exactly our contract with you for the next 3 hours here on your Election Command Center. My name is Alfred Okanse, and stay with us because we have a packed show that's going to be encompassing all the analysis and the areas that we're going to also touch on, plus some touchscreen analysis on the magic wall, just to give you an idea of what the president said he was going to do and what has been done so far. Tell you what, we're going to bring you a live coverage of the President, John Dramani Mahama's address to the nation on his 120 days in office as President of the Republic of Ghana. It's going to tell us what he has done, what he is doing, and what he is yet to do. But what we're going to do here on the show tonight, together with our guest and my colleagues, will be to analyze from the people's point of view, through the eyes and the lenses of the people, the civil society organizations, and also government, what the level of fulfillment of that promise or the promises within this 120 days has been. My name is Alfred Okansi. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. My guests already seated. I'll introduce them in a bit, but welcome. This is the coverage of the 120-day social contract of John Dramani Mahama. What has been done and what is yet to be done. Martin Esiedudate is here together with Dennis Poaberry-Wedam. He's going to be joining me as well as we do this analysis, backtracking exactly what the president said and what has been done so far. Joining me in the studio, creme de la creme of the guests that we have assembled here to talk about this. No analysis beyond what has been said and what has been done. That is our truthful contract with you. This is your Election Command Center. Welcome. Daryl Bosso is Deputy National Coordinator of Arocha Ghana, one of the foremost civil society organizations in the environment space in this country. And they've been leading the fight against illegal mining. And that is one of the many promises that John Dramani Mahama gave to be fulfilled within the 120 days. Some borders on illegal mining. Daryl is with us. Daryl, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Alfred.
It's good to have you. Also, and we have all the sectors represented here because we want to do a 360 analysis of this 120-day promise. Kofi Asare is Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, it's good to have you. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Alfred.
Thank you so much for joining us. And from the governance perspective as well, because all of this 120-day social contract, it's a convention that has become accepted in our body politics and our democracy as a country in terms of accountability to the people. Dr. Zato is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. He's a governance analyst as well. Dr. Zato, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Alfred. Thank you.
And also joining us here in studio as well is a representative from the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. Reason being, if we're talking about the state of the economy, beyond just the numbers, beyond what we are seeing with the city and how it's appreciating against the major trading currency, the sustainability of it, and how that also ties into the president's promise within the 120-day period. Charles Kusi Apiakubi is head of business and economic bureau, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. Charles, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And also we'll be joined by the deputy spokesperson for the president, John Dramani Mahama, talking about none other than Shamima Muslim, who's going to be joining us in the studio. We'll have a conversation as well beyond what the president is going to be talking about. Professor Bafo Ajimendia will be joining us on Zoom. Also, we will be joined on Zoom by a number of persons as well who will share their thoughts, views, comments, and opinions with us on the issues at play. Dr. John Osai Kwapong is a fellow at the Center for Democratic Development, CDD. He's also going to be joining us on Zoom. We'll have a conversation on this. But let's backtrack a bit. Exactly what the president said whilst he was flag bearer during the launch of the NDC's manifesto ahead of that election in December 7, 2024. This 120-day social contract, the president spelled it out in detail on that day. Let's backtrack a bit. And we'll recall specifics on exactly what he talked about, and then also the key areas on education, on the fight against illegal mining, and then also the state of the economy, and the dialogue that has been held so far, and then the aftermath of it, as we're seeing right now. So we'll recall all of that and put the conversation in perspective tonight. And this is what the flag bearer then of the NDC, now president, said during the launch of the NDC manifesto. Take a look.
Many students who are unable to take up their places in tertiary educational institutions because they cannot afford to pay their academic user fees, the academic fees. And so we'll take that stress off them. For the first year, they will not be required to pay fees. And I assure the universities it will not affect their internal generated funds. We're going to give the money to the student's loan. The student loan will pay it to the universities as a grant. The first 120 days in office, we will hold a national economic dialogue to draw up a 4-year fiscal consolidation plan. We would rationalize taxes, abolishing, among others, the obnoxious e-levy, the COVID levy, and the 10% levy on bet winnings. We will institute inquiries or forensic audits into the following matters of public interest. 1, MPP's collapse of indigenous Ghanaian banks and financial institutions at a supposed cost of 25 billion Ghana cedis. We will institute an audit into the illegal printing of money by the Bank of Ghana to finance the corrupt Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration. We will investigate the 58 million National Cathedral scandal. We will investigate the COVID-19 expenditure scandal. We will investigate corruption scandals including the PDS, Ejapa, SML, ambulance spare parts, 13th All-African Games, SkyTrain, Palugu Dam, mass sets, Galamsey fraud, missing excavators, missing tricycles, illegal and inflated single-source contracts, bus scandals, and many others.
And indeed, many others. What we're going to do with all what he has said is to now tell you the status of these 120 days promise that John Dramani Mahama made to the Ghanaian people. Exactly today, that 120 days is up. Dennis Poberi Wedam, Martin Esiedudate on the magic wall. Let's get into it now. Guys, thank you. As always, it's great to have you. What do we have on the magic wall tonight?
Well, Alfred, thanks for having us. And clearly we have under 10 minutes for the president to address the Republic. So we just want to quickly remind viewers and those listening on radio as well how many specific promises the president made. In the last video we played of him, he touched on the legal issues they are going to be working on. And you can tell that the Attorney General has also been very busy chasing or working on those. But the president address the nation, then as candidate on a number of issues. And Dennis and I are quickly going to run through the key topical 25 items that he touched on. So the first one was a promise of appointing and submitting his cabinet ministers within 14 days. And clearly, Dennis, what would the verdict be on that?
Well, that's we can see for a fact that has been done. Yes, the president indeed appointed his cabinet and did submit. Now we know that the government is running with the cabinet ministers all in place within 14 days. Yes, it did not happen, but we always see that as long as there was... Now we know that the government is running with the cabinet ministers all in place within 14 days. Yes, it did not happen, or just 2 days ago. Yes, that was unveiled, and that also is a take for the president.
Okay. All right. Hold a national economic dialogue and develop a homegrown physical plan. That was actually within the first 10 days of taking power. We saw the economic dialogue, they set it up, and also the education forum as well.
And that was important because the conversation about economy has always been topical. It's one of the key things and the key determinants of the election. So as such, anybody who took over expectedly was supposed to look into how the economy looked like and make a forecast analysis and all that. The president, actually gave indication, and he lived through that promise to do it within 120 days.
So we take that as well?
Yes, that's a tick for the president.
Okay. Now, the key issue of what was going to be happening in Parliament, he promised to scrap the harsh taxes, as some have referred to, including the e-levy, the COVID levy, the betting tax, and the emissions levy.
So much relief for a lot of people, especially the e-levy. Very topical matter. Was a promise for both sides. The major political NDC, NPP. So happened that the NDC got the nod. Yes, they leave that with tax. Now that is off the table. COVID is up. Betting tax. Yes, emissions. It was never implemented, but of course that has been taken off the books as well.
Right. So I think the one here will be the COVID levy.
COVID,
yes,
which is a component of the VAT.
Yeah.
So yes, substantially it is done. So we take it to as well.
All right. Then there's going to be a review of import taxes on industrial and agricultural equipment.
Well, so with that, because of the way the promise was couched, it usually will begin with commence a review.
Right.
But as we speak, there's no public statement as to whether that commencement has occurred. But for a fact, when it comes to taxes, it's a matter of law.
Right.
So once a law has not been passed to that effect, we cannot, for a fact, take that. Okay. So let's keep that and go to the next.
And even on this one, we remember that yesterday, here on TV3, there was a story where the Agric Minister
had said,
indicated that they were going to lay this in Parliament immediately they resume. So we would probably have to just
so it brings us back to the point of law.
Yes.
So when Parliament resumes and that bill is laid, yes, that can be taken.
Absolutely. Again, he talked about preparing a legal groundwork for the 24-hour economy, another very major subject.
Yes. The whole NDC government appeared to want to run on this 24-hour. It was their trump card. But the commencement of the legislative processes for the 24-hour economy, yes, we have seen the government advisor appear before Parliament to brief the House and to indicate that, yes, works are being done. We know there's a secretariat which is working on it. So, yes, for that, we can give that a tick.
Okay. So maybe for now, we'll have to pause here and hand over to Alfred, because we have heard the anthem played and it's likely that the President of the Republic will be addressing us in a moment. But we'll wait for that signal and then join the feed. But in the meantime, another major issue that the President promised to work on was setting up the Accelerated Export Development Council to boost exports.
That was also done, I think, yesterday.
Yes.
And that closely ties in with the 24-hour economy, because the man who is advisor on the 24-hour economy is the same person who is handling this particular one. So that council was constituted, with all the key sector ministers being on that council, a 19-member council to run that particular one. So it's a tick for the president on that.
Absolutely. And host a national conference on education reforms. That clearly was a tick, because that happened in its very early days as well. Implement the no academic fee policy for first-year tertiary students.
Yes, an allocation was made in the 2025 budget. And yes, implementation actually is set to begin very soon. In fact, there's been conversation to refund students who have already paid their fees for this academic year. So that one too is a tick, Martin. Okay,
and Haruna Idrisu has been very busy regarding that. Now, introduce social interventions, free tertiary education for persons living with disabilities, and then the launch of the Mahama Cares Fund. That has been done.
Yes.
The Mahama Cares Fund has been launched.
That has been launched, yes. There's also an allocation for the free tertiary education for persons with disability.
So that's a tick for the president again. We are almost ending the first 25 of the president's social contract. He also promised to distribute free sanitary pads to female students. That was done. And it was there that he also gave us an update on the vice president, where he says she would have loved to be here to do that, but was currently unavailable. So the president has sorted that out. Also, the launch of forensic audits into key corruption scandals. Now, this is very heavy.
Yes, and anytime this comes up, it takes us back to the oral preparatory team. A lot of work has been done, where evidence or some information has been elicited from persons who have information in respect of some key corruption scandals. The AG has also been vocal about how he intends to proceed on some of these matters. So on that score, we can give the president a take on that.
Absolutely. Then ban political appointees from buying state assets. Now, this also ties in with the social contract, because if you look into the detail of that social contract, it talks about some specifics. Well, maybe
the code of conduct.
Yeah, the code of conduct.
Yes.
I beg your pardon. Maybe now we need to swing to Alfred, because the First Gentleman of the State, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, is about to speak. So maybe Alfred would want to come in.
We're keeping eyes on the president because, as you indicated, yes, he is going to address the nation on his 120 days in office. We've been doing that analysis of what has been publicly stated and what he has done. And guys, there's a few more you have to run through. The 25 that we captured, some of them that we played in that video during the launch of the manifesto are not captured in there. For instance, about the investigating the collapse of the commercial banks as well by the actual administration. The president has made statements to the effect that, you recall, during the economic dialogue, indicated that that's something that's heavy on the radar. They're going to look into it. There's been no specific timelines to it as well. So, yes, let's get into a bit more of that. Martin.
Right, clearly. So, Alfred, we're just, baiting time here to see how things play out. Also, President Mahama promised to allocate seed money for the establishment of the Women's Development Bank. That is a topical one.
Yes, and that has been done, except that there's always the conversation as to whether the money is adequate. And for me, I think that's a different conversation. The promise was to allocate seed money. If the seed money is 1 cedi, seed money has been allocated in the budget. So that's a take for the president.
A take for the president. Create jobs through a Jumera apprenticeship and the 1 million coders program. That has been done.
So that actually was the launch of the program. And that launch has been done.
Yes.
If you pay key attention to the construction of the promises, quite a number of them has launch in them. And if you take away the launch, it may seem as though he said he was going to actually hit the ground running with it. But for the purposes of this discussion, it's launched. Yes. And that has been done.
It has been launched and did it in various parts of the country to show the national nature of it. Also, he promised to scrap the ban on salvage vehicle imports to support local artisans. Yes, so this, not yet. There's a conversation on it. The Importers and Exporters Association and then those who deal in spare parts, they are concerned about this. And hopefully in the coming days, we'll see how it's going to look like. So let's keep that. Right. And then reform government scholarships to end political favoritism. Well, this, I understand the bill, it's also undergoing some drafting processes. When Parliament reconvenes, it will be laid. And because this is also a matter of law, and a law has to be passed, that would mean that it can only be done when Parliament reconvenes and the law goes to Parliament. So we'll have to hold on to that. So we'll have to hold on for that. All right. Okay. Then, so guys, ban illegal mining and launch environmental recovery initiative. So there are just about a few more for us to go. Right, but Martin, we have a signal from Alfred now. Yes, but just on the bit about the scholarship, let's go back to that one. Dennis, you're right on it. And Kofi Asare, who's also been doing quite some work in the education reform that this administration started, that committee. And Kofi, let's have you on this one. This reform government scholarships to end political favoritism. Yeah. How far has the work been in achieving this, from what you do know?
Yeah, we have an interest in that. We've written several papers, developed prototypes of laws and policies for the scholarships reform since 2022. And so I'm aware that the drafting process has advanced. My last check at the ministry indicated that the draft bill is at the cabinet level. My organization submitted a formal memo 3 weeks ago to the team working on the draft bill. And so far as I'm concerned, the status of that is that it is at the cabinet level from where it will go to Parliament. Yeah.
I see. So that's what we do know now, based on the updates so far. And as I indicated, Shamima Muslim is going to be joining us in a bit. We're keeping an eye on the presidency. So stay with us here. We'll bring you live coverage of the president's address to the nation on his 120 days in office as president. Let's cross over now to the presidency and hear the president's speech. We'll cross over in a bit to have and also hear exactly what the president has been saying. But guys, let's stay the steam on analyzing so far what has been done. We have the scrap the ban on the salvage vehicle imports to support local artisans. That's where we are.
So we are going to ban illegal mining.
On this,
yes,
and we just
Kofi Asare's intervention was on the scholarship. On the scholarship, so now moving to, right. Yes. Yeah, so now ban illegal mining. Ban. Now the watchword here is ban illegal mining and launch the environmental recovery initiative. Well, illegal mining is already banned. The launch of the environmental recovery initiatives. Yes, the Blue Water Guards and all others. So yes, we can give a take for that. Yeah. I can understand the environmental advocates will not be happy because of the issue of the LI that allows mining in forest reserves, but that's a different conversation altogether. Let's look at the next one.
Okay, and still on this, maybe certainly Darrell will have a bite on this particular issue. Maybe Alfred would want to bring in Darrell's thoughts on this. Yes.
So let's bring in, and that's one of the reasons why Darrell, you're here. Illegal mining. Yes, now we understand that promise that when Parliament reconvenes, LI 246 is going to be repealed. You have that from the presidency, correct?
Yes, we have that information. But I still think that if we are working with the kind of matrix they are using right now, we don't have a ban, as was said. So let's be a bit cautious on that. I would say we don't take on that because there's quite, yes, they've launched the Tree for Life. They've launched aspects of the Blue Water Initiative. So there's still some work to do, and I wouldn't give a good take for that particular one.
The water guards, the Blue Water Guards that have been also...
The water guard is a part of the Blue Water Initiative.
Right.
It's a part. I think it's a much more comprehensive policy,
okay,
and we don't have that yet. And also the key aspect of it, which has to be ban illegal mining and stop new mining activities in forest reserve, that is still pending. With LI 246 in our statute books, it means that a lot of work still needs to be done. So I wouldn't take government positively on that.
Right. But maybe, Alfred, I could also ask Darrell here that if you consider all the steps that have been taken, especially by the Minister in charge of lands and the recent operations that have been undertaken across many forest areas, you know, excavators being seized, persons being arrested, foreign nationals, etc. If you look at all of that in perspective, you would say that it wouldn't be far-fetched to give the president a take on issues of mining and illegal mining when you look at it holistically. Wouldn't you agree, Darrell?
No, well, you see, every new government is really very active in dealing with galamsey issues. They get onto the ground, they start doing a lot of things. So this is very common. I would really want to see some very strategic milestones, like LI 246 to being revoked. It should have been off the books by now because it was a campaign promise. It was not done yet. And so for me, I would say, let's hold on to that. Let us all give the president a good take on that one.
Right. See, Dr. Zato, I'm beginning on this particular one as well. Your thoughts on this, especially because, as was indicated, some work has been done. In the matter of perspective, I think that's what I was looking at it. Now, to the extent that, yes, some work has been done, but for them as CSOs, they're looking at other things. That campaign promise of repealing LI 246 for as long as it's still on our books, it's a no-no for the president, even though a lot of work has been done, clamping down on a number of illegal mining activities. We understand 9 forest reserves that were held totally by illegal miners. 7 out of them have been retrieved, and then also over hundreds of excavators as well impounded. Good measure, you would say?
Good evening to you, and thank you. Good evening to your listeners. This is one of the areas where I would say I would defer to the experts. And in here, I would defer to Darrell.
Right.
And when Darrell says that, no, you cannot take it, then I agree with it. Because some of the things are even low-hanging fruits in this particular area. As he said, you promised to, what's the name? Repeal the LI. Yeah. Now, what is before Parliament is supposed to what? Amend it. Yeah. You promise repeal, you amend it. That, you cannot take on that. You just can't do it. And again, that's what I'm saying. I would defer to him because this basically like his day and he's there. Nobody in the CSO sector has come out to say we are winning the galamsey fight. Nobody in the CSO sector has come out to say the tide is beginning to turn. Nobody. And so if you talk to any of them, nobody, no.
You are not seeing any positives?
No, it's not. That's not what I've said. You can see some, but nobody. He mentioned it. Yeah. Are they seizing excavators? Yes. Were they seized before in the yes. Are they arresting people? Yes. Was that done before? Yes. So what is everything that has happened had happened before. Nothing cataclysmic had happened. Nothing has happened. I say, whoa, this had never happened in the past. Is now happening, and that's what I'm saying. Some of them are low-hanging fruit. CSOs have called for what's the name? State of emergency. It has not happened. They've asked for a repeal. It has not happened. So what I'm saying is that yes, whatever that has happened seems to be a continuation of previous efforts. If that is what you say, then I can agree. So because of that, it is. But this is an existential crisis. And all of us should be vested to say that, look, this is a new government with new sentiment. They still have goodwill, a lot of goodwill. You can use a good chunk of that goodwill to deal with an existential crisis. You can afford to do that. You can afford to say that right now, because very soon, as now 120 days has passed, as you go ahead, it becomes difficult to do some of the important things because of the simple political calculations. So this, you can then invest your goodwill to say that this is an existential crisis, I will deal with it. But again, as I said, I will defer to them. And if you defer to those CSOs, if you talk to any one of them, they will tell you that we are not even, the tide is not even beginning to turn. And that is an existential crisis.
All right. Let's go back to the Magic Word, guys. And a few more we need to run through. Even before we went to that the bit on illegal mining, the scrapping of the taxes on the salvage goods. I know the salvage vehicles. I know Guta has some stake in there as well because of their work that they have with these traders who also do their work in this particular area, and Abosokan spare parts dealers as well, Swami Magazine, all of them looking into this particular area. We'll get into how the city is performing right now and looking at it in the broader sense of the state of the economy. What next do we have on the wall, guys?
As it stands, maybe for purposes of the larger conversation, we might want to stick with Darrell and untake the bit about the ban on illegal mining.
No.
Okay.
Well, so we have to make a case for this.
Okay.
And we are saying so because we are sticking to what the president put out as his promise.
Okay.
And like I said, if we are reading the specific promise that the president made, he said he was going to ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves. Unless we have information that there's mining in there's new mining activities in forest reserves and that illegal mining is not banned, then he continues by saying that he was going to roll out specific initiatives. Tree for Life and Blue Water Initiative, have those been rolled out? If yes, I have always made the case that when it comes to some of the things, he may not have done all of them, but to the extent that he has done some substantially, then it should count. So it is on that basis that I am urging that at least we take this, because we are taking the president's word for it. Okay. When it comes to a larger conversation about the fight against Galamsey, yes, we can begin to now bring in some of these issues. By taking the president's word for it, I think he's largely succeeded in doing so.
On doing that. All right. So what we are doing now, for those of you who are watching from home, we are just going through the 25 promises that the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, made to, at least he hoped that he would achieve those within his first 120 days. Well, from the 7th of January 2025 to today, that 120-day period is elapsing. Hopefully by close of midnight today, then we know that that 120-day has passed. However, we're still waiting to get the green light from the office of the president, where he would be speaking to the entire nation on these same promises that we are going through. We, again, just by way of a reminder, have our guests who are already sat down with Alfred Okansi, and they'll be digging deeper into the major promises the president made. And when you look at it on face value, ours is to just, highlight the key ones that we all have seen and heard and followed and even reported on here on TV3. And I'm here with Dennis Faberry, Wadam Esquire. We're just trying to break down the key promises the president has made. So the next major one...
Just to see, this government has a total of 1,461 days to be in office. They've done 120 days. Yes. That's just 8.21% of their time they have to be in office. Okay. Just so we're able to appreciate how much time they've done and how much time is left. Okay. These were promises that they made themselves. I mean, after having gone around the country, solicited people's views as to how they want the country to progress. And this is what they say they are going to do within the first 120 days. It's like they set questions for themselves. Now we're going to see whether they've answered their own questions to the satisfaction of Ghanaians. Right. We have so far dealt with 20, 5 more to go. Okay. But as you can see, as we are taking and on taking, well, given the score. It stands at 64% now out of the 20 that we have done. Let's see what we have next.
Right. The president, here on TV3, the president promised to introduce the Black Star experience aimed at boosting tourism in the country, and that has been done.
And that's also the launch of the Black Star experience. Nothing more, nothing less. The promise was to launch. We have seen that launch happen. So we give the president a take on that.
Absolutely. And that's where the president said that when it starts rolling out properly, he will be there to, he will be on the catwalk.
Exactly.
And then also join the fashionistas.
Perhaps
exhibit.
what we should be pushing for after this 120 days is for the president to commit to do something else so that we can hold him to that. Maybe perhaps the next 100 days after the 120 days, or perhaps next 4, just something, so we are able to hold him to a certain standard, and so that he can also account to Ghanaians.
That's a good suggestion. I'm sure the president and his handlers who are watching us will probably suggest that to him. That, look, Ghanaians largely have followed right from the campaign period, right up until the swearing in, and then now. So it will be good for the president to have some specifics that we all can hold as guidebooks to see how far they are going, which areas they are faltering, where CSOs can come in to assist, where the media or journalists can assist, because at the end of the day, it is the same Ghana we are all looking at building.
Precisely so.
Yes, another promise. He said that he was going to purge security agencies of militia and vigilante elements.
Yes, so this is also another issue that was very topical. I mean, right from 2017 coming to 2020, especially with what happened at IOS West Wagon, there was a law that was passed, but the president still thinks that there's the need for the security services to be rid of militia and then vigilante. Not much has been said about this.
Yes, actually, on this, not has been said. However, we've also heard the Interior Minister touch on this largely, where he met some civil society groups and some political, identifiable political groupings, and talked about the fact that this is a major issue they need to deal with, because we know that some of these notable political institutions have quotas that they are allowed into some of our security services. So on the back of that, at least there is the initiation of the conversation as to how and what policies or strategies we need to look at holistically if we want to get people into our security agencies.
So on that score, you take it? I don't.
No, on that score we will not take it, because you can't hear.
Even though there's a conversation about it.
Okay.
Now, the reopening of investigations into major unresolved crimes, the full version of this talks about issues that have to do with IOS West Wagon and then other election-related matters.
Okay.
And you recall...
Sorry for cutting in, but I think that we are getting the signal that Alfred Okanse can come in now, because we may be getting some further information. Alfred?
Indeed, and rightly so, guys. As always, thank you so much. And Shamima Muslim is the Deputy Government Spokesperson. Is joining us right now. Shamima, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Alfred. Good evening to your viewers as well.
And good evening to you. And you were here when Daryl and by extension Dr. Zato as well all disagree with the position that yes, there's some achievement, in fact some goodwill in terms of the fight against illegal mining. Government through the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, all that intersector collaboration to fight illegal mining is there. We're seeing the positives. But then again, there's a lot more that needs to be done. So from their perspective, in their view, it cannot be an achievement for you within the 120 days, because you promised to repeal LI 2462. It's still on our books, although we are getting that firm promise that when Parliament resumes, it's going to be repealed. There's a lot more that could have been done within this period. What's the government's verdict on this?
Well, so good evening, Alfred, and thank you for having us, and thank you to Media General for the extensive coverage that we have received from your network since, His Excellency John Mahama assumed office. I think that our democracy grows when the media, as the fourth estate, is giving the necessary coverage, the right coverage, but also asking the difficult questions. And I am so excited about the conversations that are happening. This is what public discourse is about. This is what the public square is supposed to be used for. Citizens engaging in intellectual conversations about the problems of the nation and vetting government proposals and offering, alternatives and solutions. This is what we want. And I think this is what was starkly absent in our experience in the not so distant future, where, decent voices all decided to go silent. And we are very, very happy that after His Excellency extended an invitation to the people of Ghana to embrace this new era of freedom and express themselves, we are beginning to see such, levels of engagement with the public.
Thank you very much. Let's cross over to the presidency now. President John Mahama is speaking.
It is a day that I specifically noted on our calendar to come before you, the people of Ghana, to account for the critical first steps we promised to take in our initial months in office. Our campaign was anchored on the vision of building the Ghana we want together. And our manifesto, Resetting Ghana, laid out a bold yet pragmatic plan for national recovery and transformation. Central to this plan was a social contract for the first 120 days, a set of specific actionable promises designated to enable us hit the ground running and signal our unwavering commitment to change. I stand before you tonight to update you on how we have delivered on these promises. To the people of Ghana and the world observing our progress, let me state clearly, we made promises and we have kept them. Our first 120 days have been defined by decisive action, a commitment to transparency, and a relentless focus on laying the foundation for building the Ghana we want, a just, prosperous, and united Ghana. Let me now walk you through the progress we have made on the specific commitments outlined in our 120-day social contract. We promise to form a lean and efficient government. I promise to nominate the complete list of cabinet ministers for parliamentary approval within the first 14 days and to constitute the leanest and most efficient government under the Fourth Republic within the first 90 days. As promised, I announced the complete list of my cabinet ministers for parliamentary approval within the first 14 days of being sworn in. They were all successfully vetted and approved, and they have hit the ground running. Indeed, I have so far appointed only 56 ministers and deputies so far, the smallest number of ministers and deputies appointed by any president in the Fourth Republic. We've also nominated our metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives going through the various phases of confirmation to complete the formation of our governance team at the local level. Establishing a robust code of conduct. I have committed to establishing a robust code of conduct and standards for all government officials to instill integrity and accountability from day one. Building on my previous efforts, we have reworked and finalized a significantly improved version of the Code of Conduct for government appointees. The comprehensive document launched last Monday addresses new areas including a prohibition on purchasing state property directly or indirectly, regulations regarding hampers, and clear monetary limits for official gifts. I've left my appointees in no doubt that I'll bring down the hammer swiftly and strongly if they breach any of these provisions. We promise to hold a national economic dialogue within the first 90 days to understand the state of our economy and build consensus on the way forward. On March 3rd and 4th, 2025, the government of Ghana convened the National Economic Dialogue at the Accra International Conference Center, bringing together partners including the private sector, civil society organizations, traditional authorities, and academia. The participants presented a comprehensive report with clear recommendations to restore macroeconomic stability and regain confidence in our economy. These included enhancing fiscal and monetary coordination, reviewing the foreign exchange regime, implementing major tax reforms, overhauling the public financial management system, reforming state-owned enterprises, strengthening expenditure controls, establishing a credible medium-term expenditure framework, promoting strict fiscal discipline on the part of government, and aggressively pursuing inclusive growth. The implementation of these recommendations has begun to yield results. The currency is becoming fairly stable, inflation is inching downwards, and we have reduced the excessive borrowing that had become the trademark of past governments. The report also provided valuable advice on promoting industrialized agriculture and aligning skills development with national priorities. We've taken this advice seriously, and implementation is underway, guiding our economic policy decisions. Following the recommendations of the National Economic Dialogue, we've amended the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, to introduce a debt rule that aims to reduce the ratio of debt to GDP to 45% by the year 2034. We've also established an operational rule to post an annual primary surplus of at least 1.5% of GDP on a commitment basis. The amendment also allows for the establishment of an independent fiscal council to validate their legitimacy and values and provide recommendation for corrective measures. An amendment of the Public Procurement Act has also been passed, making the issuance of a commitment certificate by the Minister for Finance a prerequisite for all procurements funded by the central government. Scrapping draconian taxes to alleviate hardship and ease the high cost of doing business. I promise to scrap the e-levy, the COVID levy, the 10% levy on bet winnings, and the emissions levy within my first 90 days in office. These tax expenditure measures were central to our 2025 budget statement. On April 2nd, 2025, I signed several bills into law, including the Electronic Transfer Levy, E-Levy Repeal Bill 2025, the Emissions Levy Repeal Bill, and the betting tax. We have delivered on 3 of these 4 specific tax repeals as promised. The COVID levy has intricate linkages to the existing IMF program. As a value-added tax, we have agreed with our multilateral partners to include it in our overall VAT rationalization exercise that is scheduled for September this year. We've significantly exceeded our 120-day promises regarding overall tax reform by enacting other critical bills such as the Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill, the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the removal of VAT on motor vehicles, the Public Financial Management Bill, the Growth and Sustainability Levy Act, the Earmarked Funds Capping and Realignment Bill, the Gold Board Bill, the Energy Sector Levy Bill, and the Petroleum Revenue Amendment Bill. This swift legislative action underscores our commitment to providing relief and creating a more favorable economic environment. Reviewing taxes on industrial and agricultural imports. We're committed to reviewing taxes and levies on vehicles and equipment imported for industrial and agricultural purposes within our first 90 days. My government has initiated the crucial review process. The results of this comprehensive review will guide policy decisions and be incorporated into the 2025 mid-year budget review and subsequently the 2026 budget, ensuring that we support these vital sectors effectively. Commencing the 24-hour economy policy. One of our signature policies for job creation and economic transformation is the 24-hour economy policy. We promise to commence drafting the needed legal amendments and prepare for its implementation within the first 120 days. The program is designed to drive structural transformation across our economy, built on pillars aimed at revamping key sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. The program rollout has commenced in earnest. The 24-hour Secretariat is collaborating with the Development Bank of Ghana and the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund to operationalize financing pillars for this program. Cabinet has approved amendments to the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act and the Labour Act to include specific clauses regarding 24-hour operations. These amendments aim to enhance social protection, create an enabling environment for the 24-hour economy policy, and promote conducive business and labor relations. Already, several businesses are lining up to sign on to this policy. Some tangible actions have also been taken. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center has launched 24-hour premium services to eliminate processing delays for investors. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has launched a 24-hour passport service with the passport application headquarters operating 24/7. The DVLA used a 24-hour service to clear a long-standing 18 months backlog of licenses and will soon commission a new 24-hour service office at Adenta in Accra. The Youth Employment Agency is set to launch the Graduates in Corporate Support GRICS program, which will attach graduates to firms operating 24 hours a day. This program is targeting 20,000 graduates. The YEA is also partnering with security agencies, the fire, police, immigration services, to provide security for 24-hour firms and is working towards training and deploying 23,000 recruits for this purpose. Recognizing the need for robust security, the police service is establishing a 24-hour police unit to improve 9 patrols and utilize technology supported by nationwide sensitization. The Minister of Energy and Green Transition is engaging the PURC to set up smart metering with a time of use tariff, charging a lesser tariff during the off-peak hours, a direct incentive for enterprises on the 24-hour economy policy. The Minister of Finance and Presidential Advisor on the 24-hour economy policy is finalizing a list of incentives for businesses to sign up for the initiative. The Ghana Publishing Company Limited has also begun 24-hour printing operations. In fulfillment of the 120-day commitment, we're pursuing new avenues of job creation, expanding employment opportunities, particularly for young graduates, and empowering the private sector as a key driver of sustainable job creation. We promise to establish an accelerated Export Development Council to promote exports as a key strategy for economic transformation. I'm glad to report that on Monday, I inaugurated a 19-member Accelerated Export Development Advisory Committee, which I chair myself. This committee will monitor export activities and performance across all ministries, departments, and agencies, including the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. We will not accept any business-as-usual attitude. The committee's functions include reviewing performance reports, monitoring targets, refining trade policy, deliberating on international trade issues, and providing policy guidance for exports. Ghana's export sector faces challenges, including cumbersome documentation processes, requirements from under-resourced regulatory bodies, and inefficiencies at our ports. According to the International Trade Center, these inefficiencies cost Ghana $4.3 billion yearly in losses, export losses. Sectors such as fisheries face contamination issues, and vital segments, including women and SMEs, remain underrepresented in our export sector. Establishing the Accelerated Export Development Authority Committee is crucial as a central platform for coordinating reforms, driving execution, and unlocking Ghana's full export potential. Under this Accelerated Exports Advisory Committee, our bold strategy to grow non-traditional export earnings by several multiples over the current $3.5 billion exported annually by at least 2028. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area offers an unprecedented opportunity, and we're positioning Ghana as a regional manufacturing and export hub. This year, we aim to triple the number of companies certified under the African Continental Free Trade Area Rules of Origin. We intend to scale up our export readiness, training for youth and women, and expand into new markets while consolidating our existing partnerships. Ghana will become a hub for products, digital services, knowledge exports, and our creative industries. Convening a national consultative conference on education. I promise to convene a national consultative conference on education to build consensus on the necessary improvements to our education sector. I'm glad to report that this promise has been fulfilled. Over 2,000 proposals were received, including a survey on free senior high school with 20,000 respondents. The report on the consultations will be ready by the end of May 2025 and will be made public. The extensive consultation was crucial to building a genuine national consensus for sustainable reform in our education sector. The no academic fee policy for all first-year students in public tertiary institutions was a key promise to ease burden on families and expand access to higher education. My government has taken concrete steps to implement this. 452,940,012 Ghana cedis has been allocated for the payment of academic facility user fees for 156,294 first-year students in public tertiary institutions for the 2025 academic year. Get Fund has also been instructed to pay the fees directly to the tertiary institutions, ensuring timely disbursement. The No Fee Stress application portal has been developed and is now live for first-year students to register and authenticate their eligibility for this government funding. Introducing social interventions, free tertiary for persons with disability, and Mahama Cares program. We're committed to introducing vital social interventions like the free tertiary education for persons with disability and the Ghana Medical Trust, fund, otherwise called Mahama Cares. For free tertiary education for persons with disabilities, budget allocation for beneficiary students has been captured in the 2025 budget statement. The Minister for Education has made relevant data available for Get Fund so that it can prepare for the payments for this 2025-2026 academic year. The Ghana Medical Trust Fund is a bold national policy that provides direct financial support to Ghanaians who are suffering from chronic diseases that are not fully covered by our national health insurance scheme. It serves as a lifeline for chronic disease care. On April 29, 2025, I officially launched the fund at the University of Ghana Medical Center, where I pledged 6 months of my salary as my contribution to start. Vice President Nana Jane also pledged 4 months of her salary to the Mahama Cares Fund, and I have since directed that every government appointee of mine should contribute at least the equivalent of 1 month's salary to the fund. This includes CEOs and all other appointees. I encourage every Ghanaian to contribute as you are willing and able. The short code for the contributions across all mobile networks is *225#. *225#. Disbursement to support needy patients will begin once the governing board is put in place. The draft Ghana Medical Trust Fund bill is ready and will be presented to Cabinet at its next sitting for approval and forwarded to Parliament when it resumes from recess. We are united in this mission to touch lives and bring health, healing, and hope and joy to our people. To improve menstrual hygiene, management, and remove barriers to education, I promise to reintroduce the distribution of free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools. The 2025 budget statement allocated 292,400,000 Ghana cedis for this commitment, and I launched this initiative on the 24th of April 2025. Procurement is ongoing for over 6 million sanitary pads, with each student receiving 3 packets per term at the basic level and 4 packets per semester at the secondary level. Distribution will be done through the Ghana Education Service structure to all 261 districts, ensuring that no beneficiary is left out. The distribution will be accompanied by health education. A cornerstone of our commitment to good governance and accountability is tackling corruption and eliminating waste. I promise to initiate inquiries and forensic audits into several critical matters of public interest. This war against corruption continues unabated. The Minister for Health is reviewing the Auditor General's report on the COVID-19 expenditures. After the review, the appropriate actions will be taken. The Sputnik V scandal is under investigation. The Minister for Finance has launched an inquiry into the collapse of indigenous banks and financial institutions. And make no mistakes, facts will be unearthed, culprits will be punished, and lessons will be learned. The Minister for Energy and Green Transition has commenced investigations into the PDS scandal. Deloitte & Touche is conducting an independent audit of the National Cathedral project. I expect their report by the end of this month. A number of officials have been invited and questioned concerning the 13th African Games. On April 30th, 2025, the Attorney General filed 11 charges against a former National Signals Bureau Director General and others for various offenses. Charges will also be filed in the Accra SkyTrain and the National Service Ghost Name scandals. The Office of the Presidential Advisor on Corruption will continue to receive complaints and reports regarding graft for onward transmission to the Attorney General, building on the success of the oral mechanism, which received over 2,000 complaints in just a few weeks. As promised, my commitment to fighting corruption is not limited to recovering loot from past appointees. We will also ensure that our own appointees serve Ghanaians responsibly and are held to the highest standards of accountability. To reinforce public trust and ensure equitable access to state resources, I pledge to implement a government policy prohibiting political appointees from purchasing state assets. Reports of former officials acquiring public properties after regime changes have eroded public trust, particularly the alarming surge under the previous administration. In response, our policy prohibits all political appointees, their assigns, and closely associated persons from purchasing state assets. Section 5B of the Code of Conduct provides a clear sanction: immediate termination of appointment if an appointee is found to be in the process or has purchased any state asset directly or indirectly. Allocating seed money for the Women's Development Bank. We promise to allocate seed money to establish the Women's Development Bank to empower women entrepreneurs and promote economic inclusion. Accordingly, 51,300,000 Ghana cedis was allocated in the 2025 budget for this purpose. We're finalizing the working structures of the Women's Development Bank, and details will be made public soon. Priority job creation programs. Job creation is a top priority for my administration. We promise to launch the Ejumara National Apprenticeship and 1 million coders program in the first budget. These programs are designed to stimulate youth employment, entrepreneurship, and innovation. The Ejumara program has been launched to train and support 10,000 youth-owned businesses annually, and budgetary allocation has been made for that. 2,000 viable businesses will receive funding based on scalability and the potential to create jobs. This program targets Ghanaian-owned youth-led businesses across all educational backgrounds, with specific directives to allow access for women and persons with disability unemployed, and out-of-school youth and our vulnerable populations. Under the National Apprenticeship Program, the goal is to provide vocational training for more than 500,000 young Ghanaians over the next 5 years, beginning with an initial 10,000 apprentices. The beneficiaries will receive training in high-demand sectors. They will receive stipends and starter toolkits and certification at the end of their training. A dual apprenticeship model blending classroom instructions with hands-on training will be used. I've directed the prioritization of women. At least 45% of apprentices must be women, and persons with disability, at least 5% of trainees must be persons with disability and marginalized groups. The 1 Million Coders program is a cardinal initiative for a digitally inclusive, data-driven economy. 1 million young Ghanaians will be trained in digital skills for the business process outsourcing and KPO sectors. The pilot training began in the Greater Accra, Ashanti, Bono, and Upper East regions. The technology sector is a key pillar of Ghana's economic reset, and we're taking bold steps to equip our youth to be the future of work. Commence review of Customs Amendment Act 2020. To rescue the local automotive repair industry, we promise to begin the review of the Customs Amendment Act 2020 to remove the law banning the importation of salvage vehicles. The Minister for Trade and Agribusiness has extensively engaged relevant stakeholders, including new and second-hand car dealers and assemblers. Her report has been forwarded to the Ministry of Finance, where a draft bill is being prepared for Parliament. To ensure fairness and transparency and eliminate political patronage and corruption in awarding government scholarships, we promise to lay before Parliament a new bill to streamline administration and prohibit political appointees from accessing government scholarships. Cabinet has given policy approval for the new Scholarships Authority Bill to be laid before Parliament to fulfill this promise. I hope Parliament will consider and pass this bill expeditiously when it resumes sitting. This bill will establish the Ghana Scholarships Authority, a fair and transparent system focused on needy and deserving students and national development priority areas. Protecting our environment, especially from the threat of illegal mining, has been a strong commitment. We promise to ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves and roll out our Tree for Life and Blue Water initiatives to heal and sustainably harness our environment. In the first 120 days, we've taken decisive action through a 5-pronged strategy to overhaul and sanitize the mining sector. This includes regulatory reforms and strengthening the law enforcement, including joint task forces, arrests and seizures of mining equipment, stakeholder collaboration, reclamation of degraded lands. 7 out of 9 forest reserves have been reclaimed. Illegal miners have been flushed out of these forest reserves. Concerning the ban on mining in forest reserves, on March 20th, 2025, a legislative instrument, LI 2462, was presented to Parliament to amend the Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserves Regulation. This amendment removes the President's power to grant approval for mining in forest reserves. I plan also to amend the Minerals and Mining Act 2003, Act 703, to completely prohibit mining in forest reserves. This would effectively, meticulously, legally, and entirely ban mining in our forest reserves. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has launched the Blue Water Initiative to restore our water bodies in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment. This initiative aims to train and deploy blue water guards to monitor and protect critical water bodies and prevent further pollution. At the same time, experts are working to clean up our polluted rivers. The Tree for Life Reforestation Initiative was also launched on March 21st, 2025, to restore degraded lands and combat climate change. This project aims to plant over 20 million seedlings annually nationwide, including through the one-child per tree policy to inculcate environmental consciousness in our youths. By combining enforcement, policy reform, technology, and community engagement, we're on track to reclaim our environment and ensure responsible mining for future generations, achieving the expected outcomes of reduced illegal mining, cleaner water bodies, restored forests, and stronger governance. To transform Ghana into the preferred tourism destination and showcase our rich heritage, we promise to launch the Black Star Experience Initiative as our flagship culture, arts, and tourism brand. I launched this initiative on May 1st, 2025. The Black Star Experience is not a one-day event, but a structured year-round program designed to showcase Ghana's excellence through monthly themes and events spanning heritage, music, fashion, gastronomy, innovation, and more. The approach is to create a seamless and immersive experience for local and international tourists, ensuring year-round engagement, boosting our economy, and celebrating the vibrant tapestry of Ghanaian culture. We promise to commence investigative processes into security agencies to purge state security agencies of militia and vigilante elements and enhance professionalism. A board of inquiry has been established by the Ghana Armed Forces to investigate recent recruitment processes, aiming to uncover discrepancies and implement corrective measures. Robust background checks are ongoing for all recruits and serving personnel, and mandatory ideological reorientation sessions are planned to reinforce military neutrality, national unity, and loyalty to the state and the Constitution. A biometric database is being introduced to cross-check personnel against national criminal and security intelligence records, automatically disqualifying applicants linked to political vigilante networks. This aims to decentralize and depoliticize recruitments. Similar processes are underway across other security agencies, including the police, fire, service, and prison services. Reopening investigations into major unresolved criminal cases, delivering justice is crucial for national healing and trust in our institutions. And so we promise to open investigations into major unresolved criminal cases, including the 2020 elections killings, Ayawaso West Wogombai election violence, and the murder of Ahmed Swale and Silas Wolochami. The new Inspector General of Police has established a special task force. Investigations have been reopened and progress is being made. In the tragic murder of Ahmed Hussein Swale 6 years later, the police service have made an arrest and the suspect was arraigned before court and remanded. Investigations are also ongoing into the election 2020 Tishiman South incident where 2 lives were lost. In Odododio, where 2 persons died, 3 individuals have been charged with conspiracy and murder and committed for trial at the High Court. In Ablikuma Central, where a military officer is alleged to have caused a death, the scene has been revisited and a request was made to the Chief of Army Staff for the release of the personnel involved to assist in investigations. For the tragic death of Silas Wolochami in Banda, the Attorney General's office under the previous administration had advised against prosecution due to lack of evidence. But I'm pleased to report that we have reopened the case based on actionable intelligence. In Doma West, where Kofi Robert died, 1 person has been charged and is standing trial, while the other suspect is at large and is being pursued. In Savlugu, where Zakaria Samira, a 16-year-old, died from a gunshot, efforts are still being made to find the assailant despite a lack of cooperation from witnesses. And concerning the January 31st, 2019, Ayawaso West Wogombai election violence, where 18 persons suffered injury from individuals later identified as national security operatives, we will not let that matter die without justice being served to the victims. ASP Azugo, who was deeply involved in the violence and atrocities on the day, is currently cooperating with the National Investigations Bureau to identify, arrest, and prosecute all those who were involved in the violence. With respect to cases from the 2024 election violence that resulted in tragic deaths in constituencies like Tolong, Damango, Autusenya East, Nkranza South, Ofinso North, and Ahafua North Southwest, the cases are being investigated by the Special Task Force. These are senseless deaths that should never again happen in our nation. Elections are to choose leaders, not to murder our citizens. We are committed to ensuring accountability for political violence so that it will not happen again. The Attorney General is working on a report for Cabinet to recommend appropriate compensation for victims and families involved in these unlawful incidents. Ladies and gentlemen, we promise to initiate a probe into the VRA Akosombo Bond Dam spillage to address the man-made disaster caused by the VRA spillage and prevent future occurrences. We promise to initiate a probe and take steps to compensate the victims. So this administration set up a committee chaired by Engineer Kek Kofi, a former VRA chief executive. The committee has recommended strategies to prevent future occurrences, including establishing what is called a controlled spill flood plan and implementing downstream engineering solutions for flood management. I've directed that the recommendations be implemented immediately. I further indicated that if they are not properly implemented and another destructive VRA flooding occurs like in 2023, the VRA CEO and deputies must resign or be sacked. Initiate immediate steps to compensate flood victims. The 2025 budget has made provisions for the compensation payments, and a team has been put together to coordinate the compensation exercise. I call on the chiefs and people of the affected areas to facilitate the smooth and peaceful execution of this compensation exercise. We promise to shake up and realign state-owned enterprises to enhance their profitability and their value. On March 13, 2025, I hosted a high-level meeting of CEOs under the State Interest and Governance Authority, SIGA, to underscore the critical importance of reforms. We are implementing an enhanced performance management system with clear targets, monitoring financial and operational performance, and promoting good governance in these institutions. A deep dive study is underway to uncover the root causes of challenges and provide insights for targeted strategies to foster innovation and adaptability. My vision is clear: to transform the SOEs into robust pillars of economic growth. This may involve shutting down some of them or merging some of them together. SIGA is facilitating discussions to revive the produce buying company, deliberating with the Ghana Stock Exchange about the potential listing of at least 10 of the SOEs on the stock exchange, and encouraging them to prioritize dividend payments as their primary objective this year. My fellow citizens, this has been a comprehensive account of our actions in the first 120 days of my administration. We laid out a social contract with you, the people of Ghana, with specific promises for this critical initial period. Tonight, I'm pleased to report to you that we have fulfilled these promises. from forming a lean government and establishing a robust code of conduct to taking decisive action to scrap burdensome taxes, initiating inquiries into past wrongdoings, launching major job creation programs, tackling illegal mining, reviving our environment, promoting our tourism and export sector, streamlining scholarships, supporting vulnerable populations, and holding our security agencies accountable. The foundation for resetting Ghana and building the Ghana we want together is being laid with speed and determination. These actions are not merely check boxes on a list. They signify a fundamental shift in how government operates, with transparency, accountability, efficiency, and a profound sense of urgency for the well-being of every Ghanaian. Fellow citizens, I take my promises seriously, and my word is my bond. Although we've established a solid foundation in this first 120 days, considerable work remains on the journey to realize the Ghana we all want together. This journey requires the collective effort of all of us, and I'm profoundly grateful for the mandate you have given me and my government to lead this nation. Your trust is our most valued asset, and we'll continue to work tirelessly to deserve that trust. And so I call upon every Ghanaian in every city, town, and village, in every sector of our economy, across every political divide, to join hands with us. Let us continue to work hard together, united by one purpose and a shared vision, to overcome the challenges and build a brighter, more prosperous future for our beloved nation. I thank you for receiving me in your homes. I thank you for your attention this evening. May God bless you all, and may God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you.
Right.
Well, that's the President, John Dramani Mahama's verdict of his 120 days in office as President of the Republic of Ghana in his second term. He says that social contract, he has fulfilled the promises therein, and then also some of which he indicated the progress that has been made so far and the ones that are work in progress, specifically indicating them. There are divergent views on some of them. In fact, my panel tonight also hold different views about the issues. But if you look at the detail that the president also gave as the chief executor of the promises within this 120 days, is convinced beyond reasonable doubt that he has fulfilled what he said he would do to the Ghanaian people in this social contract. A number of things that he said from the security perspective as well. As we go on, we'll have a security analyst joining us, because that's an area that he spent quite some time to talk about the cold cases that have been reopened, and then also investigations into the killings in the 2020-2024 elections. And we're also getting to know that DSP Azugu, who was a commander of the National Security SWAT team, that led that whole operation during the Ayawaso Wagon by-election, we understand is cooperating with the National Intelligence Bureau into investigations of what exactly happened there and the persons who perpetrated that crime. So that's another highlight there from the security perspective. On the education front, he touched on the scholarships, which we have talked about, and then also getting us to know that there's a survey that had over 20,000 respondents on the free senior high school policy The outcome of that survey, he says, will be published in the coming days for us to also be guided in the conversation about the free senior high school policy and many others as we go on. And then I'll come back to the table, and I have my guest still with us in the studio. And from this round, I'll start off with you, Shamima, because you were on when the president started the address. In his mind, he says he's fulfilled the promises and tick the number of boxes in there as well. But earlier, you heard the concerns that were raised, specifically about illegal mining as well. The president says there's work being done.
A lot.
But the CSOs, and by extension, you have some sentiments about what has not been done so far. Do you think the president acknowledged that from what we heard?
Yes, because this was a status report. And my key takeaway is that we should join hands to build this Ghana we want. Because this Ghana, this new Ghana we envision, will not be built by only political leaders. It will be built by all of us contributing to the cause. And you did say, it's almost like you've set your questions for yourself as a teacher and you have your marking scheme. So His Excellency sets his questions and he has his marking scheme. And from our marking scheme, based on our motive and our intention, if you look at them, again, we as a communication unit, we went through the entire 25 promises. And we can confidently say that of the 25 promises, 20 have been done and 5 are in various progress states or status. And so if you look at his speech, he has explained for those areas that people have concern about, for example, COVID-19 levy.
Yes.
He's given us an explanation, which is a very tenable explanation and a reasonable explanation for why the COVID levy is not out. But you can measure his commitment by what he has done with the other ones that he has abolished.
So the concern for the business community is that you don't measure effort, you measure results, your outcome, is it not? So yes, the promise to take off e-levy has been fulfilled. The betting tax has been fulfilled. COVID-19 is still on our books. I spoke to the finance minister. He says there are already measures in place by end of year, all things being equal, which the president also corroborates. But that cannot be said to have been fulfilled.
If you were to assess,
it cannot be said to have been fulfilled.
No, so if you were to assess the taxes that we promised, of the 4 or 5, if we have achieved 1 and 1 is in progress, is that a fail? You know, so we must be fair in the way we assess. That is certainly not a fail. Because it is, we promised to abolish a number of taxes, including COVID-19, and we have done 4 of them. And COVID-19 is already in the process. It's not like we haven't touched it. So the tax rationalization, that we have promised, the finance ministry is hard at work, working together with our development partners, with the IMF, group, to agree on the exit plan. And by September, we should have a new VAT rationalized scheme that should give us the platform to now remove the COVID-19 levy. I think every fair-minded person listening to this explanation would not question the commitment to actually, the fear should be that there's really no commitment and that this is just buying time to continue with the COVID. September will come, the end of the year will come, and that will be the truest test to the integrity of His Excellency if he refuses then to abolish the COVID-19
It's a fair
levy.
point, but the context we're doing this analysis is within the 120 days.
Yes.
So you can understand why that conversation about not being about the effort and a lot more about the results so measured, because you were quite clear that 20 have been fully fulfilled.
Yes.
And the other 5, some of them are at the various
stages. But even
stages.
if you watch the 25, we have not started measuring impact yet. So these are foundational actions that we have taken. So we have appointed a lean government. But can we assess the impact of that lean government? That is a 4-year tenure.
Yes.
So if you should look at the promises as indications of commitment to transform and to act. And the beginnings of that commitment materializing in some of these basic decisions that we have taken. And nobody who is really fair-minded will question, therefore, the results. If you're talking about results, so we say we're going to do this, we have done it. But measuring impact is a longer-term process. And now, in our 120-day social contract, we are well aware of those framings. But we said that we needed to, as soon as possible, restore trust in the Ghanaian economy. And to do that, we needed to do some tangible things, foundationally. And because we have done those things, you have heard reports from the IMF spring meetings. Our development partners are happy with the trajectory that we are moving. They're fully on board, and they support His Excellency's plans to restore the economy as well as to deal with the vexed social problems that we have. And so for us, as a government, we are very pleased with how far we have come. And we're even setting new targets for ourselves into the next quarter and beyond, towards the end of the year, because there need to be urgency to the actions so that people don't feel like it's business as usual. And so for us, we are very happy. And the likes of Professor Stephen Adai has come out. We know him. He's a veteran governance expert. And he believes that this government, under His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has done excellently well. Not perfect, not 100%, but there's real ray of hope and commitment, and I think that the people of Ghana will join hands with him to move this nation forward.
Right. And Charles, I'll bring you in. Beyond all of us also feeling the impact of the COVID levy still on receipts when you go out there to buy anything from the supermarket. You, Guta, do business. This was one of your major expectations of this administration. Do you find solace in the assurance by the president and then also the process already in place to have it removed, even beyond this 120 days?
All right, thank you, and good evening to your viewers and my co-panels here. In fact, one of the key things that made us have that confidence, proud to the president ascending to presidency is a social contract that he entered with us, because there was a series of meetings on what we need to do in case he has the opportunity to be a president. One of the things that we raised was forest management. One of the things we talk about how we can bring cost of doing business down. One of the things that we're looking at how you can stem inflation, right? And how do you create jobs? How do you make our environment much more attractive so that we can be frontiers of global changes, so far as competitive markets in Africa is concerned. So when you do a careful review from January up to date, you could see that the trend is pointing to something positive. Let me take forests. We started with a dollar as high as 16 to a dollar. Now, as we speak, dollar is trading around 13.7. What it does to us as businesses is it reinforces our gains. You see, previous years we were talking about forest highs and how it was depleting our working capital. And when your working capital is depleting as businesses, that means your strain of doing business is going down. And we've said it so many times that businesses or the private sector is the engine of growth of every economy. So when our businesses are collapsing, when our strain is moving down, it means there's no economy. The economy will also be affected. So when you see a situation where there is a pragmatic and conscious program and interventions to arrest what has been collapsing businesses, that gives us some respite.
And that's the depreciation of the city?
No. The appreciation of the city.
You said that the depreciation of the city was collapsing businesses.
Exactly.
So now we're seeing an improvement in the performance of the city against the dollar.
Exactly.
And that has positively impacted your businesses.
Perfectly, yes.
Okay.
So when you also look at how forests, cities is outperforming forests, it has a tendency of also affecting inflation. What it does to the ordinary Ghanaian is when inflation comes down, it gives you the purchasing power. So just imagine in the sector, business want to sell. The ordinary Ghanaian doesn't have purchasing power to buy. Where is the economic activity? So economic activity comes standstill, which affects economic growth. So now if you see, one, forest coming down, you see inflation coming down. That means that there's a positive environment for business to grow. One of the things that you also experience when forest size is happening is people lose confidence in the economy. So you see capital flights, you see people buying forest to hold as a store of value, right? That also affects an economy. 2022, you saw businesses, multinationals moving out their business from Ghana. It was because we're losing confidence in our economy, our cities were depreciating. As we speak now, from January to date, the city have appreciated about 7%. That also means that even our debt to GDP must come down now. That means that there was no need for government looking for taxes from businesses.
That's the dollar component of our external debt.
Exactly. When you do the arithmetic, that's supposed to mean that
all things being equal,
all things being equal, our debt to GDP must come down. That gives us space to grow as a country. That gives us space to grow as businesses. And that, of course, we're also looking at government policy to stem his expenditure, fiscal expenditure. And he has reduced, his taste for borrowing. What it does is when government reduces its taste for borrowing, they do not compete with business on the money market. So the crowding out effect is reduced. That means businesses can go to the bank, borrow and recapitalize their businesses for business to grow. When businesses are growing, when businesses are expanding, there's always a need for headcount. That means that private sector can now employ the teeming youth, and we therefore reduces the pressure on government to create jobs for the youth. These are the trajectory that gives us that confidence that if they're able to sustain these policies, there's a future for this country.
So the sustainability question is key because, yes, 120 days in focus, but the bigger issue here is beyond the 120 days.
We also want the traders to respond to these positive signs by way of, the reduction in the prices.
So therefore, let me
anytime this comes up, you hear them say that
you've already
only determinant in terms of price buildup. There are a lot of factors. You're looking at cost of borrowing. Okay. You're looking at utility bills. So you can't take one leg when one leg is doing well to draw a conclusion that price of item must come down. You also want to talk about the VAT system. VAT is a consumption tax. If today I decide to reduce my item, because we're still having a constant higher VAT rate, the price effect will not be felt in the market. So if you want to see real effect of price reduction in the market, the reforms that we're talking about in a VAT system must be addressed as early as possible.
The VAT amendment bill that also includes the
COVID-19 levy. And you see, you must address the cascading effect even when it comes to the VAT system. We're talking about tax on tax, which of course defiles the basic principle of taxation.
But we've had engagement with the finance minister on this. There is that assurance to address this. Does that answer the questions that you have?
Of course, we want to believe in them because we've seen some sign that they are committed doing some of the things they promised to do. But until that is done, there shouldn't be an early cry for price reduction in the system. As we speak now, cost of borrowing still remain constant.
Join hands with us and ease the burden small for the people of Ghana.
Of course. You see, economic growth is gradual.
Yes.
All right? So we give it ourselves some time. You don't just jump to reduce price because maybe forest is coming down. You must also avert your mind to cost of replacement.
Okay.
Right? So you look at all these indicators before you draw a conclusion that this is how it's going to be.
But you see, that the reason why you can understand Shabima pushing this is that the only way these economic indicators we talk about, which has improved and going the positive trajectory, is going to make sense to the person watching us, is when it directly translates into the tangibles in the person's life. So we talk about inflation reducing, as we saw today. The government has announced it. We're talking about the cedi appreciating against the dollar. There has to be some fiscal specific indicators. That's why she's talking about that at least the reaction from you, reflecting in how you do your business as Gota.
Very well. One, forests have come down. It has affected inflation. So we're expecting the policy rate also will come down. When these things are achieved, we can have a very conversation about price reduction.
Well,
and the other thing, you see, we've been crying out that Ghana is one of the most expensive destinations when it comes to doing business. Now, if we're able to have constant stability within the forest, reduction in inflation, but utility bill goes high, it erodes all the gains. So the call for PURC to increase tariffs should be looked at again, so that you do not subvert all the effort that fiscal policy and monetary policy have helped us to achieve.
It's important. A very key point that you make as well, because that contributes to the cost of production. And Shamima, that's a direct concern that for government you might also want to take into consideration, because you're doing all the other policies to reduce some elements within the cost of production, but utilities as well, we have to go up. I know it's an IMF conditionality you had to fulfill, but then again, for the businesses, in as much as other factors are looking good, utilities could derail all the positives that you talk about now.
True, and if you also look at the other side of it with the cost of fuel, which is also coming down, we hope that, at the end of the day, the combination of all these positive signs would reflect in the pockets of the Ghanaian. This is our ambition and our goal as a government. And we've heard him, and we will continue with the engagement with you to also still respond to the positive as a sign of goodwill to the people of Ghana, that business is responding to these positive, signs, and not also making a windfall out of some of these positive, signals that are coming through, whilst government continue to work to rationalize the entire system and ensure that we have a robust economy that is actually good for business. You would hear His Excellency also mention about some of the businesses that have already expressed interest in joining the 24-hour economy program, and the committee that is also being put in place to look comprehensively at the incentives. So I think this is another opportunity for GUTA and some of its members who are able to run 24-hour shifts to come on board and also benefit from the the provisions that we would have to help them execute the 24-hour mandate for us. So we are ready to do business with business.
You hear the president talk about the 24-hour police unit that is going to be created as well in this regard. Dr. Zato, a good measure of the verdict, and then also one that also gives a good outlook going forward beyond 120 days. Your thoughts?
Thank you very much. I think there's this general problem or this concern about performance, about what is performance. So if we reduce performance to ticking boxes, if we just say performance to ticking boxes, then I can agree with the government and government people that they have done 25 out of the 20. If that is performance.
You mean 20 out of
20 out of 25. So if performance is about taking boxes, but we know there is more to performance and there's more to achieving than that. There's a comprehensive report put out today by the Institute of Economic Research and Public Policy. They did something that was really good. They went back to the PNDC. They took Jerry John Rawlings, look at his 11 years. Then they took Jerry John Rawlings, look at his 8 years. After that, they took Kufuor 8 years. They took Professor Mills, may he so respect, Jerry Rawlings, may he so respect, did his 4 years. They took JDM 1, did his 4 years. They took Akufo-Addo, did his 8 years. And all of them, they are looking at their first 120 days to look at what they have achieved. If you look at that report that was published today, you would realize the IARPP scored His Excellency the President almost 34% of his achievement, 36.2. It's a failure. He has the lowest of all this. I'm quoting from a report that has been published. First, based on which indicators? I'm making the point. Let me make it. Yes. JDM 1, the first JDM that came, he achieved 58% in his first 120 days. So even by his own record, I'm just saying, if you just look at the report, again, I'm looking at what I've said. Even by his own record, his first term, his first 120 days are far better than his current 120. Let's go by the record. But for me, I don't want to...
Go by which record exactly?
His first 120 days.
What are we even measuring and comparing?
What he promised to do within what he promised to do and what he achieved within the 120 days. That was the report they used. They used that methodology to say every president came inside.
That's why, because you said you are quoting from a research.
Yes.
I want to find out which indicators did the research use to result in that 34% that you talk about.
JDM first term. No, this is Atamils. JDM first term, they look, energy crisis, infrastructure, economic growth, social programs, energy crisis, and they use all of them to score. And that was how they came to that. The same measure they used by everybody. But I'm coming back to a bigger point. I want to focus on one particular promise, which is the code of conduct. The president said he was going to come at the code, which is an excellent idea. As a student of governance and public policy, I'm really happy that it was supposed to be a code of conduct to govern how we do this thing. It's a good idea. Excellent, I support it. Problem is, that code of conduct has come out, and already there are serious problems with it. Very serious problems with implementation and evaluation. The minimum, you say you don't receive a gift of up to 20,000. So ask a question. Is it a day, per week, or per year? So how, when you say, so is it like today, if I receive a gift of 20,000, tomorrow I can receive another 20,000? Can I receive daily? Or is the 20,000 limited to the whole year or the whole term? What is the limit? That ambiguity is not good to hold people when you're talking about morals and ethics. Remember, morals and ethics fail when there is that small gap, ambiguity gap. So where is it? Secondly, when you now say that, how do we enforce this? How do we value goods and services that are supposed to come to somebody for this? And who does that? So my point is that when you come, and then we come to realize, and I talked about this earlier, that as the president was talking about, the president was chastising his relatives for not declaring what? Their assets. I know that Shamima has declared his, so Shamima is not part of that. And penalizing them. At the same time, he was doing that. That is good. I'm happy that here was the president saying that, look, I'm putting my foot down. If you're supposed to declare your assets, if you have not done that, there are going to be consequences. You are going to forfeit part of your salary. I agree with that.
Okay.
But at the same time that the same president was doing that, the same president was delivering. Can I finish myself?
Yes, just.
The same president was telling us that he has received gifts. 2 vehicles were donated to him, and that he's returning them to the state. Then we ask the question, who gave you the vehicles? When were they given to you? Why were they given to you? How long did you keep them? These are ethical and moral issues that should feed into the same thing as the ethical issues. Okay. So for me, I'm happy that we have an ethical and moral code. I'm happy and I pray and hope that people should abide by it. It is good for our governance, but let's make it more stringent, let's make it more strong, so it can help us to achieve this objective.
Now, Shama, I want to respond to when we'll check your microphone, Dr. Zato, for you. Shama, now, I want you to respond to the specific issue about the feedback that this code of conduct that was launched 2 days ago has generated, specific to that particular threshold of the gift of 20,000.
Right. So I am, again, excited that we have turned a new chapter where a government of the day would institute an internal mechanism to align its appointees. It is very essential that in this mandate, which is described as the legacy mandate of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, all appointees are aligned to the vision, are aligned to the values, are aligned to the conduct expected of public sector, public office holders, especially appointees of His Excellency. It is important that it happens so that we will not plead ignorance in matters that will eventually bring about a bad name to the government. So we are excited that, again, it has to be John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, that is inviting this nation, that is actually showing by example that you can actually use power and influence to act and enforce, measures that will truly build this democracy. That Dr. Zato, as a political scientist, knows that there is an increasing threat to the sustainability of democracy and good governance, and the erosion that we saw in all of these accountability institutions over the past 8 years need restoration. And that restoration must be led by a new era of leaders totally committed to the cause. And that is the leadership His Excellency is providing with this new code of conduct. Isn't it significant that on the day he launched this code of conduct is the day he announced sanctions against appointees who had breached directives that he had given to those appointees? That is significant. That is integrity. That is an indication of a commitment to enforce the provisions in that particular code of conduct. On the matter of the threshold, These are proposals that have been made in the code by the committee that put it together, who were informed by best practices across the world and our own local context. People are bringing alternative views and making suggestions on how to strengthen the code. Right. These views are all welcome because even the code is a living document. It will lend itself to reforms based on the changing reality of our situation. But that 20,000 threshold for gifts receiving, it's a guideline. And yesterday I said something that has been variously, misrepresented, because my point was that if you look at the everyday expenses of public office holders, you might have to do more than to give a public officer a gift of a value of 20,000 to influence that public officer, because the rationale behind the gift is so that we don't use the avenue of gift giving to exert pressures on public officers to take certain actions or decisions that will be in our interest as, the interface with the individuals that we deal with. Right. But in that same code, it has been said that when you declare gifts that you have received in your official capacity, mind you, it is an exaggeration to say that, oh, will you be receiving gifts? When in your position as a political, do you every day receive gifts from the people you interface with? Because you are supposed, the gift is with respect to your official role and official functions. Okay. What do you do if culturally, and if it's not even a Ghanaian cultural thing, it's a global protocol. When the Czech president came to Ghana, we gave him gifts, he gave us gifts. They have been registered into the president's registry. When we went to Ouagadougou, when he went to Niger, there were gifts exchanges. These are all expectations of protocol behaviors, and good neighborliness. But when it comes to your official duty, because our system lends itself to corruption, we must have some guidelines. And so that is the beginning. If we, into the future, we think that 20,000 as a threshold is a lot to influence MPs and ministers, and we make a case, the president has always been a listening president. He can decide to review it. But for now, this is the code we're going to work with and enforce. And there is an enforcement unit at the presidency. How do we set up a code without any avenue to enforce the provisions of that code? So there is an enforcement unit. And I've also said that appointees reserve the right to seek clarity and clarification on any aspect of the code that they do not understand. They can come to that enforcement unit and seek that clarity so that they don't find themselves at the wrong side of the law. This code does not stop any other institution cloaked with powers to investigate reports of wrongdoing on the side of ministers or public officials. It does not. And so if, as a government actor, you breach the laws of the country, as you be punished by the internal code, you would also lend yourself to the external code and the external laws of the country. This is a welcome addition to our democratic dispensation. We must hail it for the significance it presents to us at this time, given what we experienced over the past 8 years, where, democratic institutions were deteriorating from the judiciary to the legislature. There were the reports. He's quoting a report from IEA. There were reports from Afro. He says IEA. What did he say?
Report.
IEA.
That's why.
Institute of Economic and Research and Public Policy.
Can I just conclude my? So I'm saying that he's quoted from some research report.
There's a reason why I asked for the indicators used for that research.
After I can give a copy of
if you talk,
because we need
if you talk about the Dumso and so on, in the first 120 days of the first term of President John Dramani Mahama, that was not a promise to solve Dumso in the next 120 days.
You want me to go ahead to discuss the report?
No. You ran through the indicators. I think
there are different indicators for different government. It's not a one uniform indicator for all government. You cannot do that.
So how do you measure on
exactly. So you continue.
How do you measure on unlike
So
I'm telling you that in the power sector, you can put it with the power sector. What did you promise to do within the first period? You can ask.
Did Kufuor promise to do some things in his first 120 days?
Yes. You can. It's possible to assess any government based on 90 days. The 90 days.
On what indicator? We gave you our indicators. We gave you our social contract. Did Kufuor say that after 90 days, come and measure me on ABC?
Yes,
relax. You are very energized.
Thank you. I just
so relax.
Yes. So, Chama, conclude on the point.
So my conclusion is that to be fair to this to Dr. Kato, and I would encourage him to be fair to himself, because again, you're putting out a report of parameters that we are not aware about. Because did all these presidents you mentioned, from Jerry Rawlings, did they come and tell Ghanaian people that within this my 4-year mandate, I'm going to go into a 120-day social contract, and within that 120-day, I'm going to do A, B, Z, and D, and so measure me by that. So you cannot now go and pick and choose what aspects of someone's 120-day that you are assessing and giving marks based on. But you have a right to grant, you have the right to, assess the performance. But wrapping up on the code of conduct, again, we are reiterating the fact that there's a new era of leadership, and we're inviting Ghanaians to come on board, join hands, so that we will enforce and restore this democracy that has, been brought on its knees because of the bad governance. It was not the NDC that came out with reports like the Afro Barometer report, which we can all reference, that said that there were deteriorations in our public institutions, and that trust in our accountability institutions were at an all-time low, and that the leaders of the day had shown increasing heavy-handedness in the way they were stifling press freedom as well as citizens' dissent by rounding up young people who were demonstrating and throwing them in, custody and traumatizing these young people. Today, it is just beautiful that the invitation that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama gave to the people of Ghana, that under his leadership, we are returning to real transparency and to real freedom of expression. The first group of people to test the integrity of that promise must and should and was the New Patriotic Party, because they have tested the promise of His Excellency to test whether he means it when he says Ghanaians can express themselves legally through protestation. So the MPP has already organized 2 public demonstrations, and they have done it peacefully. They were not harassed. They were given access to the security zone. They described the Jubilee House as a security zone, and there was an officer of the president who went to receive. This is what you use executive power. You use it to build. You use it to unite. You use it to enforce the rule of law and due process.
I'm going to be coming back a lot more to you on the other issues. But, Darrell, you see, on the point about illegal mining, Galamsey, before we had the president, this is the president's verdict that March 20, 2025, the amendment of LI 2462 commenced in Parliament, and to take out that element of concern that you had about the access given to mining companies to go and mine in forest reserves. That is going to be repealed from the law, and then effectively the Minerals and Mining Act would also be reviewed and amended so as to legally ban mining in all forest reserves. But then this doesn't tick the box for you? Why?
Yes, Alfred. So I think that let's put credit where it's due. And the fact is that this government inherited a Herculean tax in terms of the illegal activities going on in our forest reserves. I must say that we've never seen this kind of onslaught on our forest reserves before. But to also promise that you are going to ban illegal mining in our forest reserves and also to ban new mining activities, I guess it's not just about issuing out statements and saying, I'll ban something. Banning something means that there needs to be some indication, evidence that really you have banned mining in forest reserves. And as far as we are concerned, if you go to our forest reserves now, there are mining activities happening, and some of them, illegal mining activities happening, and the government says, I will ban illegal mining activities in forest reserves. So if there are still illegal mining activities going on, then we can't say that we have achieved that. Again, there are really some low-hanging fruit already the government could have taken, because one of the key elements of banning illegality is also coming out with some very, I would say, legislative instruments or evidence to show that you have put in place the necessary framework to really stop people. And one of those kind of legislation that could have been dealt with by now is LI 2462. The government dragged its feet from a point where they inherited a process that was actually going to even repeal it. And a process that they also supported and corroborated with all of us, almost all the CSOs who were asking for a repeal. They rallied behind us and were also demanding a repeal. So we actually had a lot of expectations for them coming into power to say, look, we are already going to take this law away, but they decided to go and amend. And Alfred, let's be clear here. That amendment process was only going to stop or exclude mining from just 30 forest reserves in this country. There are over 288 forest reserves in this country. So if you amend to only save less than 10%, you have really not done anything. So for me, I think that we shouldn't just be talking about a statement of ban, but let's really see the indicative actions. And I'm not saying that a lot has not, some things have not been done. We have seen the actions of government working with the police, the military, to flush out some of these illegal miners in the forest reserve. The previous administration did it. But let's really see those very... Oh yes, we had Operation Hot, Operation Vanguard, all of these things happened, but they came back. And even with now, this current administration, they are also saddled with the problem where once they go and clear the people, the next time they go back. We have been talking about having presence, persistence, and permanency of security services on the ground through a state of emergency. The government thinks that it is now draconian at a time when in the previous administration, they thought it was the way to go. So I think that, yes, a ban, you say you would do it, but we are yet to really see that happen. Yes, he did indicate that they are going to roll out Tree for Life. I must agree that has been launched. We are yet to really see the result of that. And then, as part of the Blue Water Initiative,
the results in 4 months.
No. I said I'm fair in saying that it's been rolled out. I mean, it's been launched, but there's more to be done, and that is something that we are looking forward to. As part of the Blue Water Initiative, the government has already launched what we call the river gas system. I don't believe that that is the only bit of what we say Blue Water Initiative, because the government said it's about healing our water bodies, healing our lands, and so we need to see more. So for that aspect, but considering the fact that our forest connects to the Tree for Life, our river systems and everything, that for me is a telltale factor that we need to do more than we promised. And so far, I would say when it comes to the ban on illegal mining, government has a long way to go. Right. Because there is still a lot of activities in our forest system. I must agree, somewhere in January, the president or the government talked about the fact that 43 forest reserves were seriously under siege. Yeah. And 7 of them or 9 of them were coded red because there was serious activities there with government not having control. Now we only have 7 of them that have somewhat been rescued, but the rest are still out there. So there is still a lot of work to do. So we should really, yes, commit to the ban and really ensure that all the necessary legislative frameworks that are needed to make this possible is in place. Until we do that, let's not really be quick to say we've done a lot. I think there's more to do than we have done. It's good to see the efforts going on, but we are not there at all. We still have a long way to go.
I see. And
we take the comments in good faith, because we know that there is a red alert urgency to deal with the Galamsey situation across board. And as you're seeing, it is not the presence of law or the absence of law that would actually measure the real commitment of leaders that are, ready to do that. Yes, you're right that in the election period, we're aligned with the calls for an immediate ban, as well as even the calls for a state of emergency, because we had gone 8 years into the fight. And all the resources we had already thrown at the fight had yielded no positive results other than devastation that all of you reported. So we were indeed in a dire situation where we no longer believed there was leadership commitment, especially after a Minister of Environment, Professor Frimpong Boateng himself in his report, told all of us that there cannot be any expectation of commitment on the side of leadership to fight this Galamsey menace, especially after 400 excavators vanished into thin air. So there was real basis on the side of all Ghanaians that the leadership of the day had not shown real commitment. And so we had promised to come in with a new approach, a different approach that will be fueled by real commitment. And I am happy that you are not questioning the commitment of His Excellency. One of the
Do you
first
see real
things,
commitment? And
yes,
that's
does.
a question
And
that...
Oh, yes, I think so far we've seen some very tangible commitment from government. They're looking at tracking systems. They're looking at some commitment. I mean, recently we heard the government talk about the fact that, and this is coming from the Minister for Communication of the Presidency, saying that the government has now decided to repeal LI 2462. So I think that we are seeing some commitment there. But I need to be very careful, and we need to all be very cautious about this. This has to do with aspects of forest, water, and you see the devastation on everywhere. So we need to be very careful when we... So the commitment you see, but we are yet to really translate, and maybe the government needs time. I must say, like I said, they inherited a situation where the devastation is so huge that a lot of work must go into it. And within this period, it's too short a time to really measure outcomes, like he has said. But there were still some very low-hanging opportunities that the government could have already rolled in and which they failed to do.
Something more than just the commitment,
and one
essentially.
of those low-hanging, even as we recognized very early on that the bigger problem was with our Minerals and Mining Act that required amendments to strengthen and, provisions that will really set up the legal regime to ban mining in forest reserves. But it was also the repeal of some sections of LI 2462 to disempower the president. There was also part of our problem, and you would agree, because the president had powers to issue licenses for mining in forest reserves. And what did we see? A proliferation of companies giving licenses within a short period of time, and they besieged the forest. And the president did the one thing that he had within his power to take that power away from him as a president to sign out licenses for mining in forest reserve. That was one of the low-hanging things His Excellency the President did. And we are listening. We are a listening government. As we are acting, we are incorporating comments because really we want results. And if there are suggestions that are right, that could truly transform, is it not in our interest to incorporate some of these suggestions and ensure that we implement them ultimately, if we're able to do, because we will come back to the people of Ghana in 2028 and ask them for a renewed mandate. We would have to come to them with results and impact and tangible, visible results and, of the work we have done. And one of the questions we are aware we will be asked about at the end of our 4-year mandate is what is the scorecard on Galamsey. And so we are very well aware, we are sensitive to those things. But and the president made something, he made a comment in his speech. He spoke about enforcement, about policy reforms, about technology and community engagements as our, our guidepost to dealing decisively with the Galamsey situation. But we are in the forest, we are deploying, we are deploying technology. We're using geographic sensing systems to see real-life actions. The commitment
has not been questioned, but a lot more has to be done.
And we
beyond
agree.
The commitment.
We agree that it's not a 4-month thing. We will not see the change of our water bodies in 4 months. We will not see the complete restoration of our soils in 4 months, but we are on our way towards those restorations.
Well, so let's move quickly into education, because we're touching on specifics on what the president said, and then we'll look at what the way forward will be. Kofi, even before the president gave this speech today, you had already done your own analysis and put out a verdict on the 120 days promise bordering on the education. The president talks about a survey that had over 20,000 respondents on a free senior high school. It says that outcome will be made public, and then also some 156,294 first-year students would benefit from this no fee stress 2025 academic year. And then also the bit about the persons with disabilities within this particular academic year as well. Some promise has been made. In effect, it says there's data that's going to be presented by the ministry for that promise to also be fulfilled. Based on your own scorecard and what the president has just said, does it tick the box for you?
The president made 5 promises in education as part of the 25 promises he made under the 120-day covenant. The first was to convene an education conference, which has been done. Second was to commence the distribution of sanitary pads. I'm told it's ongoing. The third was to start a policy to provide free academic user fee for first-year students.
Yes.
Which the implementation has started. I'm aware that students are now applying for a refund. Students who entered school last year. About 8,000 had applied by this morning. So the process...
About 8,000 by this morning,
yes,
on the portal that the president talked about.
So the process is ongoing. 499, almost 500 million allocated for that particular intervention. So budget available, mechanism for managing applications and disbursements in motion. They are here to receive fiscal cash. So it is work in progress, but significantly the key steps that need to put in place for the intervention to start have been instituted. Related to that is the PWDs, persons with disabilities free tertiary. The same system is being used to register them. They are registering, and there are people on the ground in the tertiary institutions doing verification, check whether they are disabled. So that's also in the process. Budget allocation has been made. So the last one is the scholarship. As I mentioned, the scholarship, the draft bill, I'm told, has been sent to cabinet. My organization submitted a memorandum to the team drafting the bill about 3 weeks ago. So that has also got into very high, because the promise was to lay it in Parliament, not pass it, lay it in Parliament. If it's at cabinet, from cabinet, it's coming to Parliament. So obviously the 5 promises are at advanced levels of implementation.
But there was also the sanitary pads bit. Some 292 million Ghana cedis has been allocated in the budget. The president, in giving that update, indicated that already some allocation has taken place and procurement is going on. The distribution will be done for the 3 packets per term for those at the junior high school level, 4 packets per semester for those at the senior high school level. That's for the sanitary pads as well. You gave the verdict that full-scale distribution yet to commence because schools just reopened 48 hours ago.
I must admit that after that initial assessment, I got a briefing from the GES this afternoon that bulk distribution had started in Greater Accra, Ahafo, Central and Western region. They have shipped their consignment there, not to the school level, school level, but to the regional level. I got that briefing this afternoon from the GES, and so some level of distribution, have started. At the launch, there was a pilot distribution, but in essence, it's already in motion. So, for us, many of all the 5 promises are output-based, promises, and so it will be premature to be talking about intermediate outcomes, let alone outcomes in 120 days. If someone promises to provide free tertiary, as I was saying, it wasn't even necessary for the government to refund free tertiary first-year fee for students who went to school under the previous administration. It
wasn't necessary
because you didn't. You promise. You make promises that you are going to do after you become president.
Yes,
but by the time the president became president, The students were already in school.
You mean the first year students now?
Exactly. So it was within my reasonable contemplation that the free academic facility user fee should have started in September this year. That would be the first batch of students who would have enrolled in school under the current Mahama administration.
For the 2025-2026 academic year?
Yes, similarly, the free senior high school program did not start in January 2017. Started in September, October. Because that would be the first batch of students who would have enrolled after January 7th. But we have a situation where the government has added an extra burden to reimburse. Reimbursement means that we might end up spending the 499 on that batch. We need another 499 for the next batch. So we'll have 5 batches in 4 years. And that's a lot of money. 500 million Ghana cedis per batch, depending on how many apply. And then,
that is all other things being equal. If the various cost elements in there remain the same, you can assume that 500 million cedis is going to be allocated every budgetary year. But that's not realistic.
Well, our projections point to the fact that if it's not targeted and we are giving every first year student an amount of money, maybe we'll be doing, about 480 million a year. Because it's not only university students, it's for all public tertiary students, including colleges of education.
Yes.
So you will be doing about between 160 to 180K if tertiary. And you see, there are people who are unable to honor their admissions and become tertiary students by virtue of they not having their academic fee and admission fee they need to pay to honor their conditional offer of admission. So once this policy is there, Kofi Menu, who couldn't honor their admission next year, once they get it now, they are not paying admission fee. They are not paying academic facility fee. So once they get admission letter, you apply to the portal, and then your name is sent to your institution that you have been given the waiver. So you are expecting that tertiary enrollment will increase at least by 10% in year 1. Okay, so it is quite an expensive venture. But then we will urge the government. It's a good start. It's not to say that the government has done so well, but I'm saying that governance is like aeronautics. The most important part of aeronautics are 2: takeoff and landing. A good takeoff is key, okay, and then good landing. And so we always pray that governments take off well and then land well. You understand? I think that in education, the government has taken off very well.
If you do a good takeoff, the probability of you being able to stem the tide with the turbulence, all things being equal, is also very high. That you can stem the tide and have a good life.
So the relevance of what we are discussing is the extent to which the momentum is sustained. The NDC has about 138 promises. It's almost 3 times the promises the NDC brought in 2017 in the education manifesto alone.
138.
Yes, it's about 3 times more, almost 3 times, more than twice the number of promises the NPP brought in 2017 in the education manifesto. So if the NPP was moving at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour, you're obviously going to do more than 1 training. So, but the speed should not be at the expense of quality.
Yes.
The speed should not be at the expense of efficiency. Other than that, as someone said, we'll just be taking boxes. I'm sure we are all not interested in just ticking boxes. I want to be discussing demonstrable evidence of impact, after a year. So we will be playing our role to ensure that we just don't tick boxes, but then we actually engage in actions that translate into quality teaching and learning outcomes, enhance enrollment, etc., and general improvement in the education sector.
And the concentration, I recall, even before the elections, you and I had a number of conversations about the state of the primary education system in this country and the public schools as well. Looking at what has been done so far and what has been promised to be done, does it convince you that these concerns you had about the primary education, not more focus has been on the secondary education over the last 8 years, primary education will be addressed? So
we are going beyond the 120 days. We are going beyond the 25 promises.
Looking forward.
I get convinced and then I get worried. I get convinced because many of we see the free sanitary parts, it's a basic and secondary education intervention, which is great, right? We've seen over 400 million allocated by the government for textbooks. That's the highest I've seen, okay? Because we don't have textbooks in the adequate proportions we need them in our schools. And so the commitment that was made in the budget for close to 500 million worth of textbooks is great. We've seen the minister launch a committee to review the curriculum so that we can finish the curriculum review, procure textbooks. That's fine. We've seen about 100 million or so being allocated at a GET fund for the procurement of desks in schools. We know how the desk deficit is affecting children learning in our basic schools. That's fine. We've seen we've seen about 140 million Ghana cedis being allocated for capitation grant for the first time, but the highest amount we've ever seen. So those are early signs. But you see,
the highest amount ever seen in allocation.
Prior was 86. Okay, now we saw 140 million.
Yes.
So yeah, those are all good. These are all good signs for basic education. But if I look at the budget broadly, and I look at the where we are traveling to, we have a big problem.
Which is what?
Basic education. Now, underlying the challenges in basic education is the infrastructural deficit. Yeah. We have over 5,000 schools under trees. We still have close to 1 million children, close to 2 million children not having access to desks in the right proportion. We need 1 million desks because it's dual. Okay. The third infrastructural issue is that about 60% of our schools do not have access to electricity. In the geographical north, up to about 80% of schools do not have access to electricity. Only 2% have access to ICT facilities. Meanwhile, computing is supposed to be a compulsory and then a core competency in our curriculum. It's supposed to be digital skills. But only about 2% of our schools at the basic level have access to digital learning facilities, which is an infrastructure. So there are huge infrastructural gaps. But if you look at the GET fund is the primary infrastructure financing basket for our education sector. Look at the CAPEX. It's mainly, in fact, pre-tertiary CAPEX is almost 100% GET fund because the CAPEX you see in the budget is for tertiary, mainly. Yes. Now, GET funds allocation. This year, we had only 12% of GET fund being allocated to basic education.
But how does the uncapping of the GET fund also help?
That is why I'm saying that's my worry. Because the uncapping, even though we have uncapped GET fund, free 2 billion plus for GET fund, and we are now having 10.3 billion allocated for GET fund, which is the highest ever. Okay? All this. We have migrated free senior high school from being funded from ABFA and GOG fully onto GET fund. And so 3.5 billion chopped off straight into goods and services. That's free senior high school. Yeah. We have also, don't forget, we're also financing partially the no-fee stress and other goods and services interventions from the GET fund. So we find ourselves in a situation where basic education is getting only 12%. Percentage-wise, it is worse than when GET fund was capped. We're doing 21 or 22, like the last year. So we have a problem with infrastructural financing. We have advised the government that they should take free senior high school off GET fund.
And put it where?
And put it to where they took it from.
ABFA?
Yes.
The ABFA, from the last time I checked, if you look at the budgetary allocation, the appendix, it is funding the big push. Majority of the promises under the big push.
Yeah, but free senior high school also needs a bigger push because you see, free senior high school is mainly consumption. 70% of the budget is buying food. It's consumption, goods and services. You don't have a space to build schools. Okay, if you are not building schools, how will you deploy teachers to go and teach in which environment? We have a huge school deficit. We need many schools. 25% of our primary schools do not have access to junior high schools across the country. In the northern region, it's 60%. Primary school. So when they finish primary, there's no junior high school. They drop out. So you have a huge infrastructure deficit from tertiary all the way to basic. So your only infrastructure financing basket cannot be used to go and buy food for senior high school students. You don't do that.
And you talk about food because now, as we do know, about 80% of the funding of free senior high school all goes into
about
feeding.
70%, yes. And the rest buy uniforms and then church clothes and then PE kits and then exercise books. You know what I'm talking about. Yes. So that's the challenge we have.
So Adam Senano is a co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. He's joining us on Zoom. But Shamima, that proposal about targeting, it keeps coming up because when this free senior high school policy started, the conversation about targeting was rife, so that it wouldn't be wholesale. You use data to target those who really need it, and this conversation about targeting is coming up again with the first year no free stress policy. If the financials is anything to go by, we are seeing all things being equal, some 499 million every budgetary year, times the 5 by end of 2028.
A lot of money.
That's quite some money. Is it one that you would consider going forward? The conversation about targeting, identifying the first year students in the tertiary institutions, public tertiary institutions who really need that help?
I think that question sits directly in the purview of the education minister, and we must leave him to be able to address that. And Kofi was integral to the education forum. Yeah. I'm sure all of these proposals are contained in them. Yeah. And so we should be hearing what recommendations within the education, dialogues we will be taking aboard. And I'm sure we will have some information in that regard in the not so distant future. Mm-hmm.
It's a big issue. I mean, looking at even beyond the tertiary, the basic education that he identifies as well. I think that's one of the issues that...
Parents must share their opinions on this matter. I think parents must share, civil society must share, and we must have a certain sense of what is a national consensus around these very vexatious matters. So we don't take a decision that will ultimately become very unpopular and that will, cost the party because the party is not listening to what the people are saying. I think that it is also our duty, and you have put it very brilliantly, to present the picture to the people. Yeah. And let us all agree. Yeah. Personally, this is what I think we should do. What is realistic and what will ultimately benefit us as a country and help our education stand the test of time.
Because you can't eat your cake and have it, right? I saw teachers demonstrating today. Yeah. And we're having a conversation. So I happen to be in a graduate teachers, yes. And I was having a conversation with one of them. And then the person was very agitated. I said, look, relax. Yes, you have been teaching, you've not been paid. But let me try and explain what is happening to you. We have a budget. 70% of the budget is being used to pay salaries. Listen very well. And the remaining 30 is being used to build schools and then provide textbooks. Simplified. All teaching and learning resources and buildings. For the government to employ you, they must build more schools. Because we need more than 2,000 schools to ensure that the 1 million children who are out of school in 2021 are all in school. Now, if the government is not expanding infrastructure, how can the government, if the government is not building schools in the 5,000 schools under trees,
to create the demand for the teachers,
how are you going to teach under the tree? So the balance between compensation and capex is always very important. Other than that, we use all our money to pay salaries, and then we won't have the opportunity to even post you to go and teach in a school. So that balance, people must know.
So that survey that the president talked about, about 20,000 responded for
free senior high school. Yes.
It's one that he says is going to be published. Where to go?
Yes.
One that should be replicated across.
Yeah, the analysis of the survey will be part of our report. Let the president know what Ghanaians think about a free senior high school, and then how they wish the policy be managed. And then we'll provide the necessary policy options to govern. But we believe that, we at Africa Educationers believe that if we pile our education fiscal space with freebies, I'm saying that it is beautiful, it is nice. It's nice. But the fact is that you will not have investment in infrastructure to guarantee equitable access for someone to even go enjoy the free. Because you have to go to the school first to enjoy the free. So if we are not having enough money to invest in tertiary institutions, halls of residence and accommodation and academic facilities, especially accommodation. If there's no money to expand the halls, and there's free tertiary, 500 million for free tertiary every academic year, how will you even get admission to go and enjoy that money? Because the universities will limit the admission because they don't have enough space. So that balance is a conversation that we must all have.
Right, and let me go on to Zoom now. Adam Senano is a co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, and that leads us to the next part of the president's presentation today of his 120-day promise and the verdict. And he touches on a number of investigations, for instance, one into the collapse of the indigenous banks. He says the investigation is ongoing in that regard. And then, Mr. Ano, one that I know you're interested in as well, the Sputnik V scandal. He says it's under investigation. Deloitte is also auditing the National Cathedral and all the expenses, so we know exactly how much was sunk into the hole. And then also the 13 African Games also under investigation right now. Your thoughts on this?
Well, it's always good when we have comprehensive actions being taken so that we don't have issues that have come up and they have not been absolutely dealt with. And so it is good to know that the government of the day is ensuring that we pick up where we left off. And these things are going to be properly looked at the point at which the facts are provided to all of us to make a determination on what actually transpired. I think that the commitment to ensuring that if we didn't have value for money, we go back and ensure that the right things are done, lessons are learned, and we move on. It's a very crucial part of ensuring that we do much better moving forward.
And in talking about doing much better, what are the specific expectations you have of these investigations ongoing? Especially because, for instance, the National Cathedral, it's a conversation we've been having. The 13th African Games, I engaged you on it as well. What are the expectations of these investigations ongoing as we speak?
You see, impunity continues when individuals begin to think that I can get away with murder. I can get away with any kind of action I take. To the extent that the state shows that, look, at the worst case scenario, every 4, if not every 8 years, there's going to be a government change. And you should expect that all the issues that have come up will be investigated and persons found culpable will be appropriately dealt with, sanctioned where necessary, monies retrieved. That begins to set the right kind of precedent and the context within which people will take their actions. And so for me, it is always good. I mean, some people would like to immediately after say it's witch hunting. I don't see any witch hunting here. The architecture of our governance is one that has resulted in where we find ourselves, which is that either every 4 or 8 years, you're going to get some change. That change is going to mean that the new government coming in will put a microscope to what transpired before. The agencies of government pick up the pieces where it is necessary, especially if the government the day did not make efforts to properly investigate or, as it were, take action. I think that sets the precedent. And so my expectations are, first of all, these actions sets a certain tone for us to know that there will be that cycle from time to time, and you can't get away with impunity. Second thing is, this country is bleeding, and it has lost a lot of money. We find ourselves at a place where we do need retrieval of resources that have been, wasted or that have been illegally acquired, including assets, whatever we can get back. And beyond that, also to sanction persons who have willfully, intentionally, defrauded the state of resources that we could have been using for our development purposes. So I'm expecting that there will be retrieval of monies. I'm expecting that assets illegally gotten will be, taken away from people. I'm expecting that people will be sanctioned. So it sets the right precedent. And all of these things are important, as it were, to consolidate good governance and, of course, to promote our anti-corruption fight in this country.
And talk about anti-corruption, in terms of the commitment to the fight against corruption, and then also the indicators within this 120 days, what would your verdict be?
I think that the president has set the right kind of tone, showing an interest in ensuring that his officers do the right thing and that cases are being followed up on. I'm a bit concerned, though. I feel like some additional consultation will ensure that, the decisions they are taking, the indicators they are setting, the standards fit into what already exists and are ethically sound. I've had cause to raise concerns about, for example, saying they're going to take 4 months of their remuneration and put into Mahama care.
Yes.
Which I think, these persons are already in breach of Article 3.
Hello, Mr. Unfortunately, I lost connection to him, but on this scale of the fight against corruption and the specific indicators that you have of this particular administration so far within this 120-day period, the president talks about the investigations being undertaken and then also the specific directives to appointees to not purchase state property directly or indirectly, amongst other things. Good indicator, Dr. Zato, you say?
Thank you.
Specific on the fight against corruption.
Yes, thank you. You see, sometimes in this country, we like to dilly-dally along things. And then we are trying to create small windows. But before you realize, elephants are going through those windows.
What do you mean?
Why do you say that appointees should not buy state property? Why don't you just come out with a ban, come out with a law that says, we are not selling state property? Why are you selling state property, but you are dividing citizens into 2 classes of citizens? Class A, political appointees. Class B, non-political appointees. Don't buy. For me, increase this unnecessary reason that you are going, what is likely going to happen is that political appointees are going to use pseudonyms, they are going to use surrogates, they are going to use all sort of mechanisms under the laws or sometimes plain ideas to buy these properties. So my point is, you are selling something and then you are saying, oh, as for this class of people, don't come and buy. What kind of indecision is that? Why don't you just come out and say, okay, look, government has land all over this country. From today onwards, government of Ghana is not selling land. That's all.
Why couldn't you propose this?
If you come out and say that, my point is that don't keep, because eventually,
so we should keep selling.
When you so ban it. You don't do that. So my point is, why are we doing this to ourselves? Why don't you come and say, and that is part of the code of conduct things that I was talking about. When you create so many holes in it, that finally it becomes like it is just an advice, not enforceable, it creates a problem. Don't put people in a position where they're likely going to do something and then later you are finding it difficult to jump correct it. Ban it. The same thing my brother Darrell was saying about the Galamsey. Ban it. The same thing we are saying is, because if you want to talk about intention, and if you talk about the idea you want to do, then be emphatic. Say, look, we have come to realize that people hide behind these things to do this stuff. You do that. As for the idea about investigating crimes of committed, of course, 100%. Nobody should feel that they are entitled to something they are entitled to. And people should not walk around with any impunity. No. If somebody has broken the law, the person must pay for it. If somebody has committed a crime, the person must be prosecuted and do so. For me, nobody is going to be against that whole idea. I'm 200% for that. But we keep setting these traps for our public officials, and that's why we are surprised that they do it. I've seen a very nice picture. Go back.
Are you talking from experience over the past 8 years?
I see a very nice property. I see a very nice property there. Then if government say this is for sale, it says for sale. Yes, I know. And see, I'm looking at governors. I'm looking at governors in general, and I'm saying that let's not create these loopholes where we know people will exploit
for an elephant to come through. Let's
So for me, let's do this. Let's try to be, if we want to be honest with ourselves, if we want to be sincere, let's do that. Ban sale of government properties, ban sale of government land, say that nobody should buy them because it's land. The land doesn't get expired, the land doesn't get spoiled. Ban Galamsey now and say we are banning it. Declare state of emergency in Galamsey, say we are doing it. These are all very low-hanging fruits that the government can easily do.
That you
Please, JM, you're supposed to be legally defining. JM, you see how someone is tackling me? I didn't tackle
you. We are building the nation now. We must build this regime with sincerity.
His Excellency, the President, has a golden opportunity to be a legacy defining president.
And he will be, inshallah.
But so far, and I want him to succeed. I want him to be a legacy defining president. But he's allowing the politics to, at the right beginning, temper with that. Please move away from that.
We'll be back after this quick break. Stay with us. This is the continuous coverage of 120 days of President John Dramani Mahama in office as president in his second term. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Mirror into one pan out to me did say.
Missy, divine mixture and up to me appetite. I'm a manumatu 1 year and saying between me did you.
Mirror, so no divine mixture be and all dear see me. Saint
Welcome back. This is the coverage of President John Dramani Mahama's 120 days in office performance assessment. He is giving a speech essentially detailing his verdict, not putting any specific percentages to it, but he says that he's on track and then fulfilled the promises that he made to the Ghanaian people within this 120 days. But going beyond that, what has to be done to sustain these gains that the panel here have outlined in various areas, and which areas as well could be improved upon? And Charles, I'll start off with you on this one as well, and going forward, looking forward beyond this 120 days, for the business community, which issues do you expect the president and by extension government to institute specific policies, actualize them to address?
All right, thank you, Alfred. The game changer in economic recovery is the 24-hour economy. Mm-hmm. And that policy stems from what we call the supply-side economics, which of course was professed by Ronald Reagan, former president of the United States.
Right.
That let's go into more production.
Reaganomics.
Let's cut taxes to businesses against aggregate demand. When there's more production, prices of items will come down. Mm-hmm. But what I want government to do, let's learn something from 1D, 1F. What were the challenges of 1D, 1F that we did not get the optimal value of it? Mm-hmm. Okay, right. When you listen to most of our people that subscribe to that policy, the challenge was source of funding. When the funding house do not understand the dynamics, the challenges of the sector and the industry, funding is mismatched and it collapsed. Two, one of the things that we talk about is utility bills. When we are overly dependent on hydro supply of power, it is affecting cost of doing business. Can we be looking at other sources like solar for businesses within the 24-hour economy policy? Can we also be looking at building the capacity of businesses? You see, sometimes it's not about funding the business, it's about the technical know-how. It's about the capacity to understand what must be done at what point, what model or strategy must be adapted to survive in these challenges. These are some of the things that we're looking at. And finally of it is a tax regime.
Right.
And from the birth of the 24-hour, cut taxes to businesses. Okay. Anytime you give those savings to businesses, the savings are revamped into the economy. And the multiplier effect is you government also enjoy through taxes like corporate income tax. Mm-hmm. What we want to say that, yes, we don't have total access to the international capital market, right? Mm-hmm. There are businesses in Ghana, there are local investors that have excess liquidity. Mm-hmm. They are looking for where to apply this investment. Right. Can we go to private-public partnership in terms of capital expenditure? A typical example, Kumasi Accra Road. Okay. Can we give it to the private people? Right. To do a true BOT, build, operate, transfer. Okay. In that way, you are encouraging local business to be part of the economic recovery. Okay. Currently, most people want to take their investment and buy properties in Dubai. So let's look at how do we inculcate the local business into the process of economic recovery. Mm-hmm. That is the way to go.
Perfect point. Thank you very much. And Dr. Zato, looking forward beyond the 120 days, you've made some proposals along the way, but what are the specific expectations in terms of policy intervention and government decisions going forward that you hope to see?
Thank you very much. I'm a little bit apprehensive or worried about the survey that His Excellency talked about they are going to do. If you
what survey you're talking about? The survey has been done on the Free Senior High School.
Yes.
It's been done. Over 20,000 respondents.
Yes.
He says it's going to be published.
It's published. Because if you hear the expert talking about education, we need a lot there. I'm afraid that we may be moving towards a system of means testing in the education sector. And if we do that, when we do that, not only will it be an ideological and philosophical betrayal of the political left, it will cause irreparable damage to our educational sector. So I'm hoping and praying that when it happens, that we don't go the way of means testing. We should not. the gentleman was talking about so many things. Yes.
Wait, you talk about means testing, essentially talking about not the wholesale application of the free SHS policy.
In fact, I was happy when on the State of the Nation address, His Excellency the President said that the free HSS again, he's going to keep it like that and make it stronger and better. That's what I choose. That make it stronger, make it better. Well, actually, they need more money, they need more resources. Do that. Please don't use means testing in education. It won't help anybody.
Well, Kofi,
we will let the data speak in our reports. We engaged 20,000 respondents in our survey. We engaged over 2,000 participants across the country. We received over 2,000 proposals through our email from Ghanaians women abroad. So we will take a decision based on the evidence. There are two things I want to see going forward. One is that, yes, we've seen a lot of initiatives being launched. Those are great starts. We want to see policies being developed for the initiatives. I want to see policy guidelines developed to guide in proper operationalization of these interventions so that they don't become promises, but then they are mainstreamed into formal policy. We want to see these beautiful interventions being sustained into education policy. We don't want it to become the promise of a party that came or the promise of Mahama that after 4 years you won't see it. If free monetary part is good, it must remain. And indeed, it must remain. So we want to see policies and then policy guidelines developed for all the interventions
beyond administrations.
Yes, because we've seen policies in this country that were implemented for years without a policy document or a policy guideline. Without these two, it becomes difficult to effectively and efficiently implement the policy and measure its impact.
The second, like a bill, because the free SHS did not have a bill.
Even the policy was in draft for about 2 years or 3 years, and then when it was finalized, it became a secret. You understand? And so people think there was no policy, but there was a policy. But then in the first 2 years, there was no. It was a draft, you know. And so let's develop policy for the no fee stress. Let's develop a policy for the free tertiary for PWDs, a policy for the free sanitary towels, and then let's develop policy guidelines so that the public will know that this is the framework within which we are implementing these interventions. The second thing, which is the last thing, is that we want to see, we've seen about 500 million being allocated for free tertiary. We've seen about 300 million being allocated for the sanitary parts, etc. The financial allocations are good, but that's just 1/10. The big elephant in the room has to do with the disbursement. So the second thing I want to see going forward is not just a commitment, but then actualization of disbursement. Let's disburse the allocated amount so that the objective of all these interventions would have been achieved. Those two things are very, very important for effective implementation of the interventions in the education sector.
Thank you. Dara.
Yes, so I think the government has started very well in terms of some of the efforts they are putting in, but there are also some policy directives that, for me, is very retrogressive. One of them being the plan by government to deport foreigners who are found engaging in illegal activities. I really hope that going forward, government will rethink this position. And then there's also this problem. I mean, there's a certain level of impunity in the system when it comes to targeting forest reserves for mining. That must be met with an equal force of, I would say, deterrence. And that is why we believe that when it comes to forest reserves, every excavator that is found in there, the Forestry Commission needs to be given the permission to really ban those excavators. I know the government has issued a fiat, the president has issued a fiat, which is somewhat really keeping officers on the ground in check in terms of how they should manage excavators. Maybe that needs to be considered when it comes to forest. Then on the bigger discussion of excavators, which has become the weapons of mass destruction in the country, the government had since 2022 set up a very good initiative of tracking. I mean, we're in the control room today, Mincom control room, and there's everything ready for us to take off and make sure that we deploy this very AI-powered system to really track every excavator in the field that is going to be used for illegal mining. But I don't really know why we are delaying. So as a matter of progress, and if we are really serious about dealing with Galamsey, we need to really go to the weapon of mass destruction, the excavators. We need to deploy this system immediately, where we track every excavator from port to the site of So we need to have a system where a mining regime is that robust to also recognize the social and environmental costs and make miners responsible for the damage they cause to the environment. Not just because we are just interested in the gold, they take it and they go away. Right. We need to really look at that. So I think that if we take all of these on board and really the government puts in place the necessary legislative framework, repeal LI 2462, I've heard the government talk about going to review the Minerals and Mining Act to really now give comprehensive protection to forest reserve. Let's do that, and it should be very immediate.
Right. Shaima, I'll give you the last word on this.
Yes,
Having heard all this.
Yes, and I mean, from everything that has happened here today, I think it just reinforces the ethos of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama when he says that we should all feel welcome to this new dispensation and this new era of constructive public discourse, where superior arguments should shape our common destiny.
Citizens, not spectators.
You know, where really you can't be citizens, not spectators, where your freedom of speech is assured, but most importantly, your freedom after speech is also assured. And we've seen evidence of that by the New Patriotic Party themselves accepting the invitation to be citizens, not spectators. Even though their demonstration was uncalled for, they were still, they were able to exercise that, right of theirs. So join hands is the clarion call and the call to action by His Excellency. Join hands and let us build this, country well. And such was the culture of silence that Dr. Zato himself could not give his beautiful advice to his own government in the previous, administration. It is a new era now. And Bright also says that he would also donate 2 months of his salary to the Mahama Care. So again, join us and join hands and let us do operationalize Mahama Care. Professor Joshua Alabi sent a message, and I'm aligned to it. I want to read. He says that when someone promises to build a house and commits to completing the foundation within the first 120 days, and then fulfills that promise, it reflects clear progress and strong commitment to achieving such milestones. Also shows that there is true dedication to completing the project. Let's continue to support and encourage the builder, because this house is being built for those who truly need it. And even as much as we say that, I want to conclude by inviting dear fellow Ghanaians to assess us on the same basis that we also assessed the previous government. We assess them on the basis of the character of their leadership, the conduct of members of that administration, and their general competence. And so we invite you, measure our competence by the tangibles that we are delivering. Right. Look out for the software of this administration, where His Excellency has enjoined all of us, appointees, to give a different feel and character to this government, aligned by the common vision and values of trust, of transparency, of accountability, of responsiveness to the needs of our people, of prudence in the management of our collective resources. Right. And so when we are able to do this, we will together join hands and build this Ghana that we deserve, that we want together. Please come on board. And we're looking forward to the next 4 months.
Thank you. Shamima Muslim.
Yes.
Thank you. Shamima Muslim is Deputy Government Spokesperson. Also joining us is Dr. Joshua Zato, Lecturer of Political Science, University of Ghana, is a governance expert as well. Also, with us Charles Kusi Apia Kobi, and he is in charge of the Economic and Business Bureau of the Ghana Union Traders Association. There was a message from Professor Smart Sapon to you that Guta will always have a reason not to reduce their prices. so
says you are speaking sense.
Anyway, Kofi Asare, thank you so much for coming. Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, and to you, Daryl Bosu, Deputy National Coordinator, Arocha Ghana. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for staying with us. Tomorrow, the conversation on this continues on New Day and also on 3FM 92.7. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your Alfred Okanse. Have a good night.